is what we're changing, and I'm absolutely for it, is convenience for integrity. And I think we have to be willing to do that as a country and as a state. If you guys saw Anthropic's latest model of mythos is what they called it. They released it. They kind of did a preview, pre-release, and then they actually pulled it back because they realized how dangerous it was. This is the first time I've actually said this publicly. Media's asked to interview because it made national news. New York Times, everyone has written about it. Again, I thought those were no-brainer things. And it just...
They are no-brainer things, but people just don't have brains, apparently.
You said it. I didn't. What one lobbyist said to me is, what's most dangerous about you is you're not bought and paid for.
Welcome out to God and Country. I'm Uriah Kennedy, and this is Ingrid Bettridge back from vacation. She's had a lot of fun down in Mexico, enjoying herself with her husband and some friends down there. We've just come back from Memorial Weekend and a big event last week with Tina Cannon, with Braden Hess, with Tier Auxier, and with Phil Lyman. So those videos are up and posted, so watch those videos, particularly the Tina Cannon one. Obviously, all of them are important, but Tina Cannon specifically mentions the whole data center thing going up on Box Elder County. As many people know, Tina Cannon is actually from Box Elder County, so she's got a lot of insight as to what's going on up there. I know our comment section is way blown up because of what we were discussing with the commissioners there in Davis County about what's going on up in
But
Box
everybody
Elder.
should go back and watch that Memorial Day episode. I watched it from Mexico, and I felt like I was feeling the feels for Memorial Day all the way down there, and that's an absolutely wonderful episode.
Yeah, it's just 4 veterans just talking about their experiences being veterans. So we don't really discuss a lot in politics, just what it means to be serving and what it takes to go through the political climate serving between the different administrations. So definitely watch our Memorial Day episode. Today we've got a great guest coming from the southwestern portion of Salt Lake County. This is Doug Fiefia, running for Senate District 18, running up or taking the seat actually from Dan McKay, who we had on a couple months ago, but getting more and more conservative as we go along here. We want to really disrupt the Senate as much as possible. So between you getting into the Senate and between Brooks Benson getting into the Senate, and we are praying, and we really, really need the support of everybody in Davis County and in portions of Morgan County to help us get Braden Hess into office. We really need to have that complete disruption in the Utah Senate. Brings us a lot more conservative, making sure that really, really good House bills are not dying in the Senate, not even getting past committees, and kind of taking the lobby out. So we're going to have Braden Hess on next week, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Then the following week, we're going to have John Atkin, who's running for sheriff in Davis County, and Mike Smith, who is the sheriff down in Utah County. Both of them are going to be at the same time discussing a little bit about what we discussed in the booth at the Republican convention down there at UVU, which was drug trafficking, child sex trafficking, all that's going on in Happy Valley, Utah County, Davis County, and especially Salt Lake County. So Utah's not immune to any of those big issues, and we're going to be discussing that in a couple of weeks. Remember, June 23rd is the primary election. That is what everybody's going for right now. Are you in the primary?
Yeah, so me and Senator McKay are in the primary right now.
Yeah, so him and Senator McKay are in the primary. that's going to be the big event. So make sure everybody gets out there and vote as conservative as
I
possible.
think ballots will be out by the time this airs.
Yeah.
Yeah, ballots are headed out on the 2nd. On the 2nd of June, so they'll probably be hitting doors by the 4th or 5th, I would imagine. So by the time, next weekend when Braden Hess's podcast is coming out, you should have ballots in hand, which is why we specifically wanted Braden Hess next week, so that his podcast is coming out when ballots are in hand, because that's the one election I'm watching in the state that we really, really, really want to change. Although yours is good too. So everybody, this is Doug Fiefia, and we're going to have a great conversation today. So Doug, how are things going today?
Good. It's an honor to be here. Thank you guys for having me and for the invite. It's an exciting time. We just made it through convention. We won with 58.6%. We were just short, just 2 votes to win out of convention, but still positive. I think the great thing about moving into the primaries, we were meeting tons and tons of people, neighbors, friends, new friends, people who are excited about this race and supporting. And so although we hate the amount of money that's going into this race now, we have gone grassroots. We aren't hiring outside knockers. We didn't even hire some big political consultant or hiring this big firm to run our campaign. When people ask, who's running your campaign? Well, I look in the mirror, it's me. I'm doing everything. And people say, who's running your social media? Well, it's me. I approve everything. I'm doing it all. Oh, you edit your own videos? Yep, it's me. And it's grassroots. This is friends, family, neighbors. We have had over 100 volunteers come out and knock doors, door hang. And I think that's a little bit of what we've lost in politics is we've relied so much on money and just paid people to make calls for us, paid people to knock doors for us. And that one-to-one conversation with our neighbors is what we've lost in politics. Is you get so comfortable in your seat, you don't talk to your neighbors anymore, and then you start voting a different way. And I think what I've tried to bring back in this race, and even in my time in politics, is, hey, we're representative government. We believe in listening and hearing.
The average person should be able to run a race.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about you. We were on the House floor a couple times this year, and I saw your children with you.
Yeah. So been married to my wife, Jocelyn. We met at Utah State while we were both at school. We're both Aggies. Go Aggies.
My daughter's up there right now. So.
Oh, it's a great school. We have 4 young kids from 12 to 4, 3 girls and a boy. And family's everything. When people say, why are you running? I usually give them 4 reasons, and that's my children, Melanie, Dominica, Eleanor, and Douglas Jr. The whole reason I got into politics was to protect the family unit and the sanctity of our homes. And so everything that I do in legislation and how I view bills that come across my desk when I vote is, does this strengthen the family or does it weaken it? And so that's kind of why I bring them along. A couple of legislators say, well, you've made me feel bad because you bring your kids up more than I do. And I said, look, this is a family thing. If I'm doing this alone, I'm doing it wrong. And so my kids come up, they see how it's done. I want them to be civically engaged. I want them, when they grow up, to be active in the community and making sure that their vote counts and getting their neighbors involved. So
the one thing I really notice is I was born and raised down in Provo, and the vast majority of my friends were Polynesian. I mean, at Provo High School, our football team, everybody was Polynesian. And we were very, very family-oriented down there, but Polynesians in and of themselves are, take that to an extreme. You guys are very, very family-oriented.
yeah.
I had a funny stories. One of my friends, and Polynesians are naturally just massive, and my girlfriend in high school was from Hawaii, and she was very, very Polynesian. And I'd get the funny looks walking around with her because all Polynesians were like, what are you doing dating a white guy? It was kind of funny. But one of my friends, he was just huge, just a big old boy. And he did some stupid stuff, and his dad was getting mad at him, and his dad was spanking him essentially as a little older of a child, and he was just laughing at him. So he brought his uncle in too. and the both of them pounded on him like that.
I've heard about the aunties. I didn't know about the uncles.
That's Polynesian right there.
It is. So when we say we're raised by the community, we truly are. In the Tongan language, which my parents immigrated from the islands of Tonga in the late 70s, there's no actual name for cousin or aunt and uncle. If you are my cousin, you are my brother or my sister. If you're my aunt or my uncle, you're my mom or my dad. And we treat each other, we love each other, we help each other, we feed each other that way, but also we discipline each other that way. And so I can discipline my sister's kids as if they're my own, but I will also love them, clothe them, and feed them. And so there's not this awkwardness of, oh, can I have this? It's like, no, this is your house. Go and eat. Oh, you need some clothes? I will clothe you. But also, if you cross the line, I will also discipline you, and you'll get spanked just as the way as I spank my kids. And so
that's what I noticed.
There's something I think that is captured in that we've lost a little bit of, is like the community raising and being there for each other, looking out for each other, and not being so soft when it comes to rearing children and having that relationship with your whole family.
Yeah, one of my best friends right now, and he actually works for me. I'm a sales manager for a big national cardiovascular company, and he actually lives in American Samoa. His name is Torolai Ho Ching.
Yeah.
And he's got a massive, big family. His wife died of cancer a few years ago, so he's been the single father and most of his family's up here in Utah, but just the warm-heartedest guy that I've ever met. I'm just, the whole culture is just phenomenal. Like,
yeah. I know Ho Ching, great guy, great family.
you know Torolai?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends. He's been friends with me for, 20 years now. So
yeah,
almost as long as I've known Ingrid. So,
and he's important in the Samoan culture. He's kind of
he's up there with
the
king.
title, and
he's got the title and everything like that.
Yep.
So yeah, great guy. He's trying to get back up here, but he's currently living down American Samoa. But
yeah.
So what is the big thing between the Tongans and the Samoans? Because growing up in high school, because again, all my friends were Polynesian, the Tongans and Samoans did always get along with each other. So
I think that's more of an American thing. When we all came to America, it was like trying to figure out who everyone was. And I was like, well, we don't fit with them. Yeah, we're not that group. And then it was like, oh, well, you guys are the same. It was like, no, we're not the same. And so we had to fight each other to prove, we're different. And luckily, I think, in the 90s growing up in Utah, there was a little bit of a rivalry and some gangs there. I think that's died down quite a bit, which is nice. I think we all get along now. I think there's been a lot of marriages to each other. And so it's like, well, okay, we're all related at this point now. So we're all good. But I think there was a little bit initial of coming to America and figuring out like, okay, we don't fit with the blacks. We're not with the Latinos. Where do we? And then it was just like, okay, we've got to differentiate. So, yeah. So
yeah. One of the funniest experiences I've had because my high school football team were all Polynesian, just all Polynesian. And I was Provo High School graduate, and we were playing against Timpview High School. And Timpview and Provo High, they don't get along at all.
Yeah.
So very, very crosstown rivalries. And we were up at Timpview playing, and one of their, I think it was their defensive lineman, made a cheap shot uppercut with his fist and just totally underneath the face mask just punched one of our offensive linemen. And you saw the fist, you saw him coming up, you saw his head go way back. And we had a guy on our team named Johnny Tejada, and he was Tongan, and he was sitting on the bench, and just the way Polynesians did, he goes like this and starts looking around, and boom, like a bullet, he shoots off the bench and just spears this guy in the end. Then the bench is cleared, and that was the end of the game.
Yeah, we can be the friendliest people, and then
so defensive as well.
You offend our friends, our family, our moms, and we go into that warrior mode, and that clicks in, and it just is game over. So
with this village raising the family, how does that work with the gangs? How are the parents allowing that?
Yeah, if you look at some of the biggest Polynesians, everyone's scared of them, but they're scared of their moms. And so they still listen and respect their moms, their aunties, their parents. Luckily, I think that has died away because of just, I think over time, the older generation realizing what was going on and them stepping in and saying, hey, this is not this is not who we are as a people. So that's kind of changed a little bit, and it's been more kind of welcoming family, but still don't cross the Polynesian.
No, we played in Provo High School again. Kahuku came up from Hawaii to play against Provo High School, and that was the biggest thing. So we had the Kahuku High players actually stayed in our homes because they didn't have any place to stay. So I had 2 of them in my house, and there was one kid in there who was like 14 years old playing on the high school team, and he had to have been me and a half.
At 14.
At 14, he was just a massive I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. We're gonna be playing against you guys? This is gonna hurt. And man, that was my worst game ever because we lost by 2 touchdowns. So we kind of held our own, but man, you guys hit so hard.
Big boys.
Big boys. Right before that, and this is a funny story. Right before that, all the Polynesians within the Provo area, we had this big luau planned for like a Saturday morning, and we were going to do it out on a Provo High School football field. So we got permission from the school, or the Polynesians in there got permission from the school to do like the official pig cook. And so they let them dig a hole just off the football field, 2 feet down in. They filled it with lava rock, the palm leaves, everything. Did the whole burying thing. And my girlfriend and a couple of her family members, because they were pretty big in the community, actually camped out there that night until the next morning. And then they had tables going down the racetrack. And I had never seen more food in my life. Every Polynesian from the entire city, I think, showed up to that thing. And there was just food everywhere. And there's pigging out. I'm like, this is crazy how much food is out there. But the funny part of that was, so our track coach, who was also Polynesian, comes up to the big old pig, and it's got the apple in the mouth, the whole works, right? Chops off the ears, pulls out the eyeballs, puts them on his plate, and goes off. And I'm like, you're not going to eat that, are you? And he totally did. I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah, the ears, the feet is usually something people just cut off, and that's like the favorite part. I guess the meat is a little bit more fatty and tender. It's interesting, but yeah, it's
It was the first time I actually tried pig brains too.
okay. Yeah,
Lovely.
Because my friends would come up to me and says, you're not Polynesian unless you try this. I'm like, you serious? No, you guys are doing this first. They totally did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's see.
we don't waste.
Well, I say waste not, want not.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. But yeah, those are my experiences. But yeah, most of my friends grew up Polynesian. So
That's awesome. No, my parents immigrated in the late 70s. We lived in a small home with 5 other families, all my mom's siblings. I am the youngest of 5. We had the biggest family with 5 kids, so we got the living room. And I can still remember the hard floor that we would sleep on, nestled
area?
like little sardines in Kearns, Utah. Those cold winter nights, we were nestled like little sardines. And in the hot summers, my grandpa would take out his mattress, put it on the front lawn, and we got free air conditioning. And so that was kind of the way of life. And my parents were always working. The way I got to know my dad growing up was going to work with him. He worked, 2 to 3 jobs, and then he would come home late at night, and him and my mom would then go clean office buildings. And so those early days are what taught me hard work, sacrifice, and they came here to live the American dream, and they worked hard, and it was through entrepreneurship. My dad then started a construction company, did drywall, and the way I got to know him was going to work with him every day. And there was one story real quick. I was 12 years old, going to work. I finally realized, well, it's summer and my friends are playing, but I'm at work with my dad. And so I'm just frustrated. I'm kind of piecing this together. And we get home after a long day of work, or we're riding home in his truck. And I said, Dad, what is this all for? Why do you work so hard? Not really understanding bills and how to pay for things. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, son, the reason why we work so hard is so that you can get an education and you can be better than us. And that one moment finally, as a young 12-year-old, helped me understand this is what sacrifice is. My parents weren't doing this because that's what parents do, is go to work. They were doing this for us. And it changed my perspective on how I go to school, how I show up in sports, and how I show up. We didn't have time to complain because I realized my parents were busy working so I could be in this classroom seat and so I could be in this opportunity. And that has changed the perspective of how I serve too. And why I got into politics is I can't just sit back and allow laws and things to happen to me. My parents and my grandparents sacrificed much so that I can make a difference, and to hold those values that they came to America for. I think there is a real battle between what our country was started and slowly slipping away. And if not me, if not us, then who? And I think there's a real opportunity to step in the arena and fight for the things that I think my parents and grandparents did.
So how did that lead you to running for the House when you first ran the House? Tell us kind of what clicked. Say,
Yeah.
I'm going to run for the House. Now you run for the Senate, but
Yep.
let's start what was going from nothing to politics.
Sure. So I've kind of always been involved. As I said before, I was a student body president at Utah State. So I'd been on the Hill advocating for buildings and different programs and kind of being the voice of students. I was also the Utah Student Association president. So all the student body presidents create this board, and we represented all 160,000 students in the state of Utah. We'd work with the system of higher education and the governor's office to say, these are what students need and what they want. And so I had a little bit of taste of, this is how Utah politics works. And then I got involved with, city council races and knocking doors and, some local races that I would donate to and just help out. Just again, trying to do my part, but never thought, I'm not going to do this. Well, there was a couple of bills that came around, school choice being a big one in my area. I'm a big advocate for school choice. I think us as taxpayers should be able to choose where our tax dollars go as it relates to our children's education. And the current rep at that time voted against it. And I started looking at the voting record and kind of started questioning, oh, that's kind of interesting. We'll try to contact them and kind of got ghosted, visited with mayors and said, well, can you introduce me to them? I'd love to understand, if they vote that way, sure. I just would love to understand why they voted that way. And the mayors kind of responded, well, he doesn't come to anything. He doesn't talk to us. And so I took a few of my good friends that had been involved in politics and tried to pitch them like, you need to run. I think we need a voice, someone to represent us. And they said, well, why don't you run? And my reply was, no, I have a young family. I have a career that I'm working on. I don't have time for this. And they said, well, then stop complaining. And that was kind of the gut punch that I needed. And I said, okay, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm going to actually do this. And so I threw my hat in the ring. I challenged the incumbent then. Later down the road, the incumbent decided not to file. I didn't know how politics works. So it was December, and I just announced. I launched a video.
What year was this?
This was 2002 or 2022, December. I announced before filing even happens. And people are like, what does this happen? I launched a video, had over 100,000 views, and people were like, who is this new guy running? And I'm like, this is what I'm standing for, standing to protect the family, school choice and education and, parental rights. This is what I'm standing for. And anyways, he ended up dropping out. And fast forward a couple years after that, after the election and race actually happened, ended up winning a convention with 87% and then won the general election and have been in the House for a couple of years now and now running for the Senate.
What were some of your accomplishments on the floor this year?
So my background is in technology. I worked for Google for 5 years. I've been in big tech. I've seen kind of how they work, how they
They're all on the up and up, right?
the jury's still out on that. I have some very strong opinions on how big tech has made changes and how they've gone about using our data and information. But that was the biggest bill. 2 sessions ago, I passed a bill that allowed us as social media users to own, manage, and control our data. We should have always managed and controlled that. But today, if you were to post something on a Facebook, well, you think you own that, but they own it. It's theirs. And if you want to delete it, well, it'll delete from your timeline, but they have it on their servers forever. And then they use that money. It informs an algorithm, all of our information, and then they sell it to advertisers for billions of dollars, literally changing our free will for their bottom line. And that's what I felt uncomfortable with is that is our data and information. We own that and we should always own that. And if I say you need to delete that, you should delete it forever and because it's mine. And so that was the big bill that changed kind of the way that we interact with social media and our data and information. And that was kind of the biggest bill. There's been other bills around foster care that I passed. We found a hole in how money was being used and made a change there. I'm happy to talk about that more, but that was kind of the biggest kind of accomplishment a year ago. And then this year, the focus has been around AI, because I was at Google as AI was released, and seeing from the back end in big tech and how they were using AI, I wanted to ensure that, again, privacy, our data and information, and especially our children, as they're interacting with AI, that they're safe.
Yeah. What mistakes have you made that you've learned from?
Politics is an interesting game where sometimes if you show all your cards too early and you're trying to do the right thing and saying, this is what I'm standing, people take advantage of that, whether it's big tech and the lobby or other powers that come in. And so I've learned kind of the way to get things done. And I think moving forward as a legislator, not that I won't be transparent. I think being transparent, especially with the public, is important. But when you're fighting a battle, sometimes showing all of your cards up front, it's like, oh, well, we'll just take all of those out, and that gets rid of, this bill. And so just realizing what it takes to get a bill across the line, especially fighting against, trillion-dollar companies is an uphill battle. But I've gone to war with them. We've won some battles, we've lost some, and I think there's still a big fight ahead for us to make sure that we as Utahns are protected as it relates to our privacy, but then also our kids as they go online. As parents, we can feel confident that, at least we're doing the most we can to protect them online.
Did you have any great mentors as you came in as a freshman?
Yeah, I would say Candace Perucci has been kind of a huge mentor and advocate for me. Carrie Ann Lisenby has been awesome too. I would say there's Stephanie Grecius has been very generous with her time and mentoring and helping me. I would say those are a few of the names.
It's funny how good conservatives can smell other good conservative and go, this is a good one.
We kind of team up and stick together.
Because Carrie Ann Lisenby, obviously, they're great fans of the show. And then Stephanie Grecius, we love what she's doing. Trevor Lee and a few others. So would like to promote more what they're doing.
Yeah.
But as most people know, that we have really, really good bills in the House. They tend to get watered down extremely or just absolutely die when they go over to the Senate, which I think caused you to start running for the Senate. So discuss that decision there where I'm going to switch houses, going from the House to the Senate. What made that one finally come across?
Yeah, I think that's something that is frustrating in the House, is seeing good conservative bills go and not even being voted on. And it got to the point where I said, look, I can complain about it. Same thing as when I decided to run, or I can go change and do something about it. And I'm not one to just complain about it, which I got called out by my friends. And similarly, if you're in the House, a lot of House members complain about it, and it just got to the point, well, then challenge your senator. And that is something that's, taboo, or people in Utah don't do. It's, we're a very nice state, and, people, when I decided to announce, they said, well, why are you doing this? Why don't you just wait your turn, stand in line? And my response is, the reason why a lot of things don't get done in government is because we're full of people who are standing in line and waiting our turn. And as I talk to constituents, they're sick of waiting. And it's about time we stand up and say, this is right and this is wrong. And we actually do the things that we're talking about. I'm not a lip service guy. Again, this is not a career for me. I'm not a career politician. I don't think this is even going to be long-term. It may end in June, in a few weeks here. But I can go to bed at night and look my kids in the face knowing that I stood up for what was right, and I stood up for what I said, and I did what I said. And I think we need a little bit more of that in politics and less of this theatrics politics, which people just say what you want to hear and then they do the opposite. And what
were the bills that were kind of the last straw that, no, I'm done, I'm running? There's a whole list of them. I sit on government operations. Elections is a huge
issue that we tackle. And I think that's one of the most fundamental parts of our country and our state is election integrity. And when we have bills that we're going back to our constituents and they're saying, hey, this is what we need, and me agreeing with them and then watching them just completely die, those were the bills that were frustrating. And I had an elections bill too, and I went in to the Senate and it died. And I just couldn't, I didn't understand.
What was it going to do?
So mine was mimicked after a lot of what Florida's election system is, and it was speeding up the process, because what I was hearing from constituents is, why do we vote and then it's sometimes weeks and days after that we don't hear, like, does it really take that long to process and count bills?
The digital era.
Yeah, I mean, this would be something very easy and simple, and a lot of the things that we need to change was getting rid of some of the processes that the way that mail-in ballots happen, the way that we process absentee ballots, and a lot of the questions that people had. And I said, okay, well, we need to move up timelines. We need to get rid of these systems. And I worked really hard in the House. We got it through the House, and, we watered down some areas that I wasn't super excited about. But when it got to the Senate, just completely died. And it didn't make sense, because to the average person, it's like, yeah, when we, at the end of a game, after the time is out, well, you know who wins. And there's a lot of questions that come out when it's like, well, where did all these ballots come from? And why did that happen? And so we try to speed up that process and to ensure that there was some timeliness to it. And obviously that was one that didn't make it through. And I think that was one of many 2 sessions ago that died. And so I decided to throw my hat in the ring and change things up.
We've discussed that specific bill with both Chair Auxier as well as with Trevor Lee and a few others, and they said that's a good bill. Let's rein in the mail-in balloting, because mail-in balloting, that's just a recipe for fraud. It's just the worst thing out there. But the problem is public opinion right now. If you took a poll out there amongst everybody out there, everybody loves the mail-in balloting. Why? Because it's convenient, it's easy, I can just turn it in. But there's absolutely no control over that. It is so just full of fraud. It's not even funny how bad that is. And they tried to put together a bill that would require ID one at least turning it in, right? When at least submitting it. And that bill even got watered down to where, well, let's just put the last 4 digits of your social security number on the back of it. I mean, that's not going to cover anything.
Yeah.
Who's verifying those numbers? You could put any 4 numbers back there, because there's nobody in the county that's going to sit there and verify every single one. They'll probably pick 1 in 100 to verify 1 every 100 ballots, because that's just all they have the time for. And so it's not preventing anything. So Tiara was saying that the bill is now, so if you turn it in person, if you hand it to them, they'll check your ID. But if you're mailing it in, it's just the 4 digits of the social security number on the back of it. And nobody in the Senate would pass it.
What's interesting about it is the amount of things that we ID for, just regular services. I mean, even obviously different ID, but even to get into Costco, like to shop at Costco, you have to ID. In order for me, my family to go to the zoo and to use our pass, you have to prove an ID to show that I am Doug Fiefia and my pass is associated with it. So we're not even talking about bars and clubs and to get on a plane. Those are obviously important that we use, but even the simple things to get into Costco and to go to the zoo with my kids. And now we're talking about one of the most fundamental pieces of our government and of us as a people is voting, and yet people don't feel like it's important enough to vote. And I get, especially as I speak to some of the older constituents, I understand that, yeah, I like the convenience of mailing it in, and I do like the mail-in ballot to sit down with my family and view the full ballot. Who are we voting for? And then to go in and actually vote.
Yeah.
And be prepared and discuss, what does this person stand for? Okay, let's do some research. But I think that's maybe where it stops, and we should say, hey, this is important enough that we should ID. And we should, if it's important enough to get into Costco, to get in the zoo, to jump on a plane, to get in a bar.
We are both from immigrant families, you and I, and you know that we aren't able to get into the zoo because it's very difficult to get ID. And I was also divorced once, and this whole argument, like, divorced women aren't going to be able to vote. And I'm like, I came back from my honeymoon. I was so excited. My first day back at work, I was like, on lunch, I'm going to try to be back on time, but I'm running down to the DMV because I want my new last name on my ID, like, as soon as I can.
Yeah. I think what I said this in a committee, is what we're changing, and I'm absolutely for it, is convenience for integrity. And I think we have to be willing to do that as a country and as a state, is say, this is too important to say convenience matters more than us trusting our elections, that when someone says this is who won, we all say, okay, yeah, I trust that. And we'll move forward and we can support that, knowing that the public voted for this. And I think if we start questioning that, and there are issues with integrity, then we lose a lot of our country and the way and the principles that it was founded on.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the illegals just voting, right? We were at a little cottage meeting in someone's home up in the Eden Valley with Carrie Ann Lisabee. And obviously these questions always come up when it comes to national elections. And she says that she verified while she was in the House that there was probably around 180,000 or so illegals within the state of Utah that Utah knows of, right? Because obviously there's a whole bunch of them that Utah doesn't know about. And she says they were thinking that probably half to more than half of them are registered to vote. Because all you needed in the state of Utah to register to vote was a driver's license and a utility bill, proof of address. And that was it. You could go down and register.
But once again, KSL says that's not true. They just put out an article yesterday verifying with our lieutenant governor that there were only a couple dozen.
Only a couple dozen out. Yeah. And
They
the
don't get it.
only security that the ballot had is there's a checkbox when you register to vote that says, I'm a U.S. citizen. But there's no verification of that, and there's none. And anybody can check that box, and you're registered to vote. And yet, when they tried to close that loophole, it died in the Senate again. I mean, it got way watered down in the House, but Carrie Ann was able to put forth a bill with some support of Stephanie Greases, Trevor Lee, and a few others. Completely died in the Senate again. Now, I'm assuming you saw something like that come across that was trying to close that illegal immigrant voting loophole.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess here's the thing, is if we have leaders that are in public office who disagree with it, let's have that debate, right? Let's do it in the public. Let's allow a committee to hear it, people and us to be held accountable to our votes. Transparency needs to increase, especially with how we're moving as a country and people seeing different things online and not knowing what to trust. Well, let's have that debate in the public square and allow people to see your vote, and then they can say, okay, I'm going to vote for you or not. And I think that's what we've gone away from, is that transparency of, if you don't like it, well, then vote against it, and then allow the public to say, well, I support you or I don't. And, we can start replacing people as the public sees that. But I think not having the vote and not having a committee hearing is something that is just not excusable, and we need to have more of that.
Well, half the problem we're having, and she's seeing in her area, I'm definitely seeing it in my area, is just apathy amongst the public. I don't get involved in politics. I just stay clear of it. There's too much controversy. There's too much agitation. There's too many name calling. I just don't get involved anymore. And that's the problem. If you are not actively trying to solve problem or voice an opinion or show that you have those conservative values, and then when bad things happen to good people, then you're the source of the problem. Not getting involved is the same thing as just giving the other side permission to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And so the apathy is a legitimate problem. In fact, the very people that should be listening to these podcasts have probably never even heard of it, let alone even saw a clip about it, never even heard of it. And we need the public out there to kind of share it to those specific people, because the apathy is what's killing the state. And a lot of people are very apathetic here because they think Utah's red. It's always going to be red. We've always been voted Republican. They're never going to have a problem. We're never going to vote in blue, but yet now we've got a donut hole. We're going to have a blue Democrat there. One of the Democrats that made it through convention is the very Somali population that we're trying to avoid. That's been a source of a lot of this fraud. There's a lot of people in office that are mostly conservative, but it's always that 20-25% that is very rhino, almost left-leaning, that gets us into trouble every single time. If you look at Dan McKay, great guy, Stuart Adams, great guy, Musselman, great. There's a lot of great people in the Senate, but there's always that 20% that is not as conservative as we would like it to be or need it to be, or they kind of just went along with the flow and didn't buck the system where we're having the problems we're having. And that's where these bills get watered down. So where Trevor Lee's bill that went up there to try to pull back anything and everything that would be at all beneficiary to an illegal got way watered down and didn't even make it through the Senate.
I love how they use that against him in campaigning too. Some of the flyers come out and say, Trevor Lee's bills don't get passed. And I'm like, how is that a negative against him?
Yeah, that was a frustrating bill, and a lot of the delegates in the convention race asked about that, and we just didn't have anyone who would even co-sponsor it. And so that's the trouble too. Is
no one would even co-sponsor it.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
And it doesn't take anyone's permission but the actual legislator to co-sponsor. So, I mean, yeah, it is what it is, and I think hopefully we see some changes. But I think that's what we're up against, is people willing to step out and say this is what's right and this is what's wrong. And
we're not even asking that much of people, right? We're not saying that you have to go to all these town hall meetings or see every single speech that every politician ever talks about out there, or make sure you're involved in every single political event out there. We're not asking that. We're just saying voice your opinion, right? Because if your neighbor knows your opinion, knows your conservative values, and then they're not going to be afraid to voice their opinions, and hopefully that kind of has a chain reaction effect where people kind of know.
Well, they're afraid of the debate.
Leaning.
They're afraid that the opinions won't match, and then there'll be argument. And I'm like, well, that's what it's founded on. That's what it should be, a friendly debate, a discussion. So if my neighbor comes to me and says, hey, I really like Bob Stevenson, and I say, well, aren't you concerned that he mismanaged the funds for the county? Are you not concerned that he wanted to raise your taxes 30% in order to cover the problem and didn't get that? What do you think that he will bring to the House with that? Oh, well, he's nice. I like him.
I didn't know about what happened in the county.
Yeah. Well, I like him. He's nice. And that's great. I don't know him personally. He may be a nice guy, and that's great. And I always go back to, good, have him over for dinner, do things with his family, but maybe he's not the right person to represent us in the House. In fact, he is absolutely not.
So you had a number of AI bills because you come from Google.
yeah,
So let's start there first. What about Google that caught your eye that said, no, I've got to start controlling some of this AI stuff?
Yeah, so I used to manage teams running Google Ads in my initial 2.5 years there. And it never sat right with what was happening with our data and information, right? And just how it's being used basically against us then to purchase more things that they know personally about us. That was always concerning. And, you know, as I would ask questions to colleagues like, hey, does this make you feel uncomfortable? They're like, no. And, you know, it just got to a point where I was like, okay, we've got to make a shift. And so anyways, I left the Google Ads team, started at Google Cloud, and this is when AI was released. And you saw what happened with Google and their release of AI. There was complete flop. You would ask their AI LLM back at the time, you know, give me a picture of the founding fathers. They're African American. Is like, this is not accurate. And so who's building this algorithm, right? These are biased algorithms, and they're giving us inaccurate information. Well, as I continued to be there and see what was happening and just the AI race, I realized that there were kind of the beginnings of tools being used against us as citizens, but also directly against our children. And so I realized that being in the legislature, I wanted to fix a few of the things that I saw there. And so that was the original bill, HB 418 was around data sharing and owning, managing, controlling our own data. But then as AI was progressing, I realized how powerful it was and what we needed to make sure that we protect. Now, look, I'm a free market guy. Let the market do a lot of things. But what I realized with big tech is they don't respect the free market. And, a lot of people are saying, well, why don't you just let AI, this AI race is important. Absolutely, it is. This AI race with China, this is important. It's an issue of national security. Absolutely. But what we're seeing that is happening with some of these specific tools that are going after our kids, to give another example outside of technology, it's as if a pharmaceutical company created a kid's multivitamin, gives it to the kid, and we find out that it's heroin. Would we just let the free market work it out? No, we would say you can't give heroin to kids. And then we would move on, and that would be the law that's passed. That's what we're dealing with, is literally what our kids are taking in with social media and AI, is these algorithms are learning them better than parents know them, better than they know themselves, and then are feeding into everything that they have, whether it's mental health, whether it's self-harm, whether it's explicit sexual inappropriate material. They know them and they know their weaknesses, and they're just getting them to use it more and more and feeding into that. I'll share, one of the interns came up to me during this last session and shared with me that their sister had an AI companion relationship where they were locked in their dorm for 2 weeks, 2 full weeks, and got to the point where it almost had to drop out of school, losing their job, and not responding to parents' texts, anything. And they finally broke into the dorm and got them out of it. But these are the type of tools that our kids are being targeted against, is specific tools to expose our kids to explicit inappropriate material and to build relationships that are designed to replace human interaction with our parents, with our friends. And they will affirm a lot of the kids' complaints of, oh, I hate my teacher, she gave me this bad grade. And the AI will say, yeah, you're right.
She's a horrible person. You should probably kill her.
Yeah. Just crazy things. And I've met parents of kids who've lost their kids to AI, which is just unfortunate and sad. Having AI walk their kids through.
Not to interrupt you there, but that's a massive, massive problem. So everybody can go back. We did a massive podcast on suicide. We were at the state capitol. Carrie Ann Lizzie, Trevor Lee was on it. Heidi Baldry was on it. Then we had Johnson from Utah Parents United, as well as
Child First Policy Center.
Child First Policy Center, Liz. And we specifically spoke about tech in schools and how bad tech in schools and how much tech has taken over our kids and how much that influence has led to a dramatic increase in child suicide. And then the specific numbers, Heidi Baldry brought these things out of the specific numbers within the Granite School District and the Summit School District up in Park City, of how their test scores went way up, the fights went way down when they started eliminating cell phones and a lot of tech from schools. Now this is becoming a national debate, because I'm seeing across the entire country of removing a lot of that tech from schools. And one of the big bills that just went across, and the Child First Policy Center was specifically discussing this, was limiting that tech from schools and trying to just control the data itself. And the law was passed. You guys did get it passed where these big tech companies cannot now advertise directly to kids anymore. And then she had the kind of discussion of how the lobbyists from Google showed up, from Apple showed up, and we're trying to lobby against that. And she says, they're great people. We love working with them, nice people and all. But they definitely had the big company in mind, because they were trying to get rid of that. And they tried to slip in there targeting, targeted ads, which was, they were trying to create a loophole where they could still advertise, but just not targeted, right? And the last minute, I don't know who stood up, said, no, we're getting rid of this completely.
Yeah, it was Nicolene Peck. She caught it at the last, kind of at the last moment, kind of crossing that piece out, which is powerful. So those two bills, Ariel DeFay ran the bill around kind of tearing off Chromebooks from schools. I ran the companion bill, which was the SAFE Act, which was around making sure that whatever is on our kids' Chromebooks and laptops are actually safe and secure. So we were kind of going to run the same bill, and then we decided let's go to hardware, the Chromebooks, the physical Chromebooks, and software. So we ran companion bills. Both of them passed. My bill ended up getting watered down to a study, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, we heard that.
Was just, again, the big tech lobby. They came hard to play, especially against a lot of my bills.
When does this get integrated? Because I just saw G-rated schools posted just this week, and it was live then. She was showing how on her students, I don't know whether it was Chromebook or what kind of device it was. So they did a Google search for the word attractive, and up comes just some pretty faces, but then also some, in lingerie and what have you. And then she says, you click on any one of these and up, and there's porn, intermixed actual acts that had to be blurred out as they posted it. So when will these things take effect?
It should be July. I think that was the date that the Balance Act takes effect. We still have issues with what's on the computers. This study, to be honest, it's weak. It shouldn't have gotten watered down. It should have been something that's fair. What we're also finding that was in my bill that kind of got watered down with it was you have these tech companies that put in contracts that in order to get all the benefits from this contract that they have to be used a certain amount of hours in front of kids. Well, that's terrible to say that you have to have a software in front of your kid in order to keep this contract. So you have teachers out there then saying, okay, let's take out our Chromebooks. We have to use this because I'm obligated contractually. And so we then added that as
So who's the
these tech
teacher? Who's
companies
running the curriculum at that point? It's definitely not us, not our school districts.
it's these programs. And then you go back and say, well, why is this generation the first in history of mankind that is less cognitively advanced than the previous generation?
Well, it's worse than you think. I saw a report came out this morning. I was waiting for. I was looking at a couple of school reports, and this is the first generation, rising generation, the first generation where the overall average IQ has actually gone down from the previous generation.
Yep.
And they said specifically that's never happened in the history of the planet, it's usually where the next generation's IQ always goes up because technology increases. And they said this is the first time in world history and recorded history that where the IQ of the next generation has actually gone down.
Yeah, our kids are more dumb.
Completely attribute it to screen addiction.
Yeah. Jonathan Haidt has done a great job in, finding the data and information around this. Dr. Horvath came with the Child First policy group. We were on a panel together. He's documenting all of this, but it's because we've relied on these tablets, these Chromebooks, technology to teach our kids and have gone away from the analog, which is, hey, write and read an actual book and stop getting technology to actually teach our kids. Because what happened was all of the big tech programs, they white labeled it and they called it EdTech. Well, they were created for engagement, not education, which engagement is we want you clicking and scrolling this as long as possible. And so it might be fun and it might be cool and it might be
They gamify
interesting.
everything.
But are your kids actually learning? No, but they passed this test and this cool thing that was on this program. Well, they didn't actually learn because it was built for engagement, not education. And I think we need to move back to educating our kids, not engaging them during the school day.
That's such a good way of saying it, engaging instead of educating, because that's what social media is designed to do is clickbait, right? Just scroll. And you could be on there for 4 hours and not even know it as time goes by because it's that constant dopamine, right? It's that constant hit where you're not learning anything.
And I don't think it's the teacher's fault necessarily because they're looking at their screen and saying, oh, well, look, they're accomplishing everything that we've put in front of them. The kids are doing great. Well, the problem is when we went to Chromebooks 1-to-1 and we moved testing all online, it changed the way that we learn. And that is the big issue. And so that's what we're trying to do in the legislature is actually pull some of this away and forcing teachers to say, hey, go back to the old way we learned. These should not be the crutch. It should be a tool, but not the only tool that you use. And as I have gone into schools and have been a substitute teacher, and just the screens are up. And
That's a daunting task.
I've done it because I've realized if I'm going to pass education policy or vote on it, I should know what happens in the classroom. And as I went in the classroom, I thought I would be like, one, I respect teachers even more. But two, I saw how many kids were on inappropriate websites and the things they shouldn't have been on. And finally, after about the fourth or fifth kid, I'm like, how did you get into this? This is supposed to be blocked. Well, they have a Google Doc with all of the listed areas and workarounds to get around. And I said, can you share that with me? They're like, no. I'm like, I was this close. But these kids are smart. They know how to get around anything. And so we need to just be more judicious.
Or turn that and use that for something profitable, the way kids are able to take that and replicate that. I was speaking with I believe, third grade teacher, but she was at a charter school. And I asked her how she was going to deal with the new implementation. She goes, I was already not. She goes, it's just me. She goes, I don't work that way. I like paper and pencil. And some of her teachers would go, why don't you if you would use the tablet though, it's easier to grade because it'll just grade it for you. And she goes, I don't know. I just like taking it home and grading it myself. I only have 30 students. I can do it myself. But she did ask how the testing would be, because she says the testing is geared towards what's on the tablet, or that's how they have to answer. She goes, if we're doing it this way, she goes, they better be changing how I have to test them.
Yeah, I think we have to move back to testing on paper. I really do think we've got to change that whole, we need a Chromebook to run our classrooms. And I just don't think that. And look, I am pro technology. I'm not thinking archaic that no, we're anti-technology. No, technology's here. We're not getting rid of the internet. We're not getting rid of, tablets. But when our kids are in school, they should be learning. And what we've realized through data and research is that they're not learning when they're on these tablets and when they're on these laptops. And so we've got to go back to the old way. And, I've heard the arguments, the paper costs and the time and all of this extra stuff. And our kids' education is that important that, it's going to be a little
the
uncomfortable.
Convenience or integrity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, we had Corinne Johnson on. We've had Liz Jenkins on. We've had all these people on discussing these specific topics. And the one point I've made with every single one of them is the browsers on school-provided equipment. I don't think that should be allowed at all, because that's the parents' purview. There shouldn't be a browser on any of them. And if you're going to provide the technology, okay, teach them Word, teach them Excel, teach them PowerPoint, teach them all these software programs that they're going to have to learn later on. Teach them how to type. Those are the things they should be learning. Teach them how to research if they want to get on there. Teach them how to research, but and obviously you're going to need Google research. But when they're researching stuff, they should be on a static computer at the school that provides the internet, where it's in front of everybody. And if they're researching at home, they should be on a parent-provided device that provides that internet, right? The school should not be putting themselves in the place where a parent should be disciplining or monitoring or controlling any of that. So where those browsers just need to be just taken off completely, right? Because without the problem, there's no problem.
Yeah.
They can't get to pornographic material, inappropriate sites. They can't sit in the back of the classroom, just sit here and play games the entire time they're in class, which a lot
I'm
of them are
surprised
doing.
that the schools don't see that as a liability, because if I knew my kids saw that while they were on your watch, I'm going to be litigious. Yeah.
On your device?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why any of those devices have internet, or not necessarily internet, but have browser access. Because if I'm a teacher and all I'm trying to do is just provide the material, well, guess what? They can connect Wi-Fi to my router. I can have my stuff that I need to teach them on a server that they can download. When they get home, they can have the stuff on their school-provided tablet that they need, and they can get back to school, and it connects to the router, and they can upload their homework assignments, whatever they want to do. But nowhere in there did I need an internet browser.
Yeah.
And if I did have to research something at home, well, guess what? Mom and Dad can help me research something on home on their. And the whole excuse, well, not everybody has a computer at home. The poor generation can't find that. I'm like,
There's
They
public
have the
libraries.
latest iPhone too.
Yes.
They can't afford that, but look at the iPhone.
There's not a single person
was
that
only
doesn't have a cell phone
2000.
anymore. You can figure this thing out. So if you need to, granted, everybody needs to have access to research and stuff like that and using Google, but
The other
it's
argument.
not the school's purview to provide that.
Yeah, the other argument that I hear is, well, we've got to educate our kids on this technology. We got to, and my big argument has been technology exposure is not technology education. We can educate on how to use technology, but just exposing them to this doesn't educate them. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. How many kids were trained on social media?
Then
0, but they know how to use it better than anyone. And so there are that's I think where we've moved to is we're just exposing them to all this technology and hoping, oh, you're going to be educated, you're going to be ready for the workforce in technology as technology progresses. Well, no, that's not how it works. We have to actually educate on how the technology works. And so that's where I am pro is let's actually teach how AI works and what an LLM is and how to use it. But let's not just throw AI in there and just hope that they're going to use it correctly and it's not, they're not going to be exposed to things that they shouldn't be. There's an AI company who is in our schools today that said, oh, these are all the things we protect. It's safe. We're okay. And within 5 minutes, I broke it. And I said, if I can break it in 5 minutes, I guarantee all of these kids can do it.
in less than that.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
And so let's be pro technology, but let's also make sure that we're educating our kids and figure out what's the balance. But throwing it in front of our kids and hoping it works out is not the answer. And when I talk to teachers, they're not educated on how to use the technology in a manner that is actually effective. And I don't expect them to because they have so much they're worrying about. But then you throw all this software and say, hey, this is what you're supposed to use. And then they're like, oh, I don't know how to use it and effective. And so we have to find a balance of how much technology is in the room and in front of our kids.
Well, I don't even find they're actually even teaching them the technology. They're just, like you're saying, they're just using it. They're getting exposed to the technology. They're not teaching them the technology. Because my kids come home with homework assignments all the time, and we'll pull up on a Microsoft Word document and be able to create a header, create a footer, any of that to create an algorithm. If they're using an Excel spreadsheet and none of them know how to use an Excel spreadsheet, they don't know how to do VLOOKUPs or macros or any of these advanced algorithms that they're eventually going to end up using as an adult. If they're using a PowerPoint presentation, they're like, how do you create another page? I'm like, you just click over here on that page, right?
Even today.
Even simple stuff like that, they're not teaching in schools. I mean, I'm showing them how to do that here. I'm like, so why do we have any of this technology if they don't know how to use every single feature in the menu bar for Microsoft Word or Excel or a PowerPoint? They're obviously using Google Docs, but they're just reading it. They didn't learn how to create the doc and how to use the doc and how to share those docs, right? I mean, are we really teaching them technology, or like you're saying, we're just exposing them to them and then all they're doing is using Google and chatbots to figure out their homework?
That's my fear, is they go home, they use AI, and then they come back with a nice, perfect assignment that they didn't do, and they had to just put in a prompt. And I think we've got to figure out what the balance is, because I think our kids' education is at risk.
And it's the developing mind. I mean, once you're an adult, your brain's fully developed. You can get more and more exposed to technology, and it's not going to affect the long-term way you think or the way you process information. But there's a big difference between the young mind and the adult mind. It's just that developing mind just can't handle that. And if you addict them to the dopamine, to the constant scrolling at a young age, that addiction is going to be far more severe as an adult. I mean, that's going to far surpass any type of alcohol or gambling addiction or pornographic addiction ever in that person's mind. It's going to take over the rest of their life, which is why the IQ has gone down in the next generation, because they're just not learning at that young age in the way that a developing mind, a still growing mind, should learn. It's just not happening. Now here you have an article. In this article, City Journals came out, Harriman-owned community newspaper, right? Because you're in Harriman, from Harriman.
I am.
This is a homegrown newspaper right out there, right? In July, he was selected as co-chairman of the brand new National Task Force on State AI Policy, formed by Future Caucus, a national nonprofit dedicated to fostering collaboration between young legislators from both political parties. The goal of the task force is to make certain that AI policy is not influenced by partisan differences, but instead by responsible and effective principles of governance. The other co-chair is Vermont Rep. Monique Presley. So what is this task force and what are you doing on it?
Yeah, so was named back in July the task force of AI for Future Caucus, and then just recently it was just named the co-chair of an AI task force over privacy, cybersecurity of NCSL, which is I think one of the largest organizations around state legislatures. And so a lot of it is bringing in experts, talking and seeing all stakeholders, whether it's industry, technologists, academia, legislators, and having us have the hard conversations and discussions of how do we move forward as a country, as individual states, as it relates to AI, cybersecurity, privacy, etc. And so that's what we're kind of doing.
Who is
debating.
this task force reporting to?
No one necessarily. I mean, we all use that data and information then to run individual bills in our states.
Well, who put it together?
So there's two groups. So Future Caucus is a group that is kind of a bipartisan group that's creating legislators who are millennials, younger kind of legislators. NCSL is probably one of the most, largest and most powerful groups that they throw an annual conference and they have a bunch of task force. And then they also lobby kind of our national and federal partners to say, hey, this is what we've studied, this is what we've worked on, this is what should happen on the federal level. And then us as state legislators kind of collaborate and say, these are some of the laws we should pass in our states. Where I think this is important, where it's actually bipartisan, is I actually think that big tech wants this to be a partisan issue. And the reason why is because if it's partisan, nothing gets done. And if they can keep it partisan and us fighting, well, then Congress will never pass anything. And then it becomes a red state versus blue state thing. And it becomes an issue. And I really don't think AI needs to be a partisan issue. I think transparency, privacy, child protection, those are all bipartisan issues that we should all be thinking about and talking about. But again, if you look at where big tech is coming in with money, is they're trying to make it partisan. And I've been painted as this, woke liberal trying to overregulate tech in a state where obviously that would be seen as bad in my election, where it's like, well, protecting kids, I think that's a conservative view, and it's always been. And yes, I think that the free market should allow tech companies to do their thing, but also we've seen where big tech has been a bad player and has been wrong, and we followed their lead, and now we're at where we're at. We've had a long discussion about technology because of these companies exploiting us and our kids and our data and information. And so I think it's important to have and see both sides and actually work on this together with the left and the right in a bipartisan way so that we can actually get things done.
Has there been any not obvious discoveries that you've figured out on this task force?
How do you mean? What do you mean by anything?
Obviously they put this task force together for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are investigating that stuff. You're teamed up with this person from Vermont. I don't know if you've ever met with that person.
Yeah.
What have you guys put together? What is the task force reported on and put out there?
Yeah, so we've looked at transparency. How transparent should these companies be, right? So every month they're coming out with a new model. Well, should they be tested? Should there be safety protocols? If things go wrong, should they report it and be transparent to the public? Those are things that we're discussing. And, some say on the other side, like, no, let the AI race be the forefront and allow them to break things and do things as they please. And it should just be the wild, wild west and allow them to win the AI race. And on the other side, people are saying, well, I think we can be transparent without stopping any of the development of AI. And that's where I tend to be is we can regulate transparency and not stop the development of AI. We can still be pro innovation while also making sure that we're protected. And if you guys saw Anthropic's latest model of mythos is what they called it. They released it. They kind of did a preview, pre-release, and then they actually pulled it back because they realized how dangerous it was, that anyone with an internet connection could take down governments, water infrastructure, entire companies. That's how powerful these models are. And today in the world, there's about 3,000 people that are technical enough to launch that type of attack, sophisticated enough to take down a state or infrastructure.
Is an AI company going to come to this task force to say, hey, tell us what you're seeing here?
So we have tons of companies. All the big tech companies are a part of these task force, and they come and they report, and we argue, we disagree, we fight. They can say, well, these are the good things we're doing. And then we'll say, well, these are the bad things you guys are doing. And so this is not a friendly, like-minded group. It's very much a debate, and we have them present, we have academia present, technologists present, and so we get to see all sides and facets of an issue. One issue that's big in Utah that we're studying now, and we're collecting all of the experts that hopefully are as unbiased can be, is around data centers, right? Is how do we view this? How do we actually look at this? How do we look at transparency and water use and energy, and how do we analyze this as state legislators? And so we're tackling some of the big issues, but yeah, big tech is in there, and sometimes they love what we have to say and sometimes they don't. I was on a panel during one of the task force meetings where me and the other person were literally debating, and it became kind of this huge debate on what big tech views as the future of tech and AI, and kind of where I saw it being from tech and being on the inside and now being outside of it. So,
well, always the problem with big tech is who's controlling the big tech, right? Because they can sway entire public opinion with just a stroke of a few keys, right? We saw that in Trump's election, where if you tried to Google anything about him, then only negative stuff would come up, or biased stuff would come up. Is who's controlling the tech? It's not that AI is bad, but AI is only a product of the individuals creating it. And so whatever it is you're coming is from are the brain children of the individuals creating it. AI is not unskewed or unbiased. As much as we'd like to think that AI is completely unskewed or unbiased, it's still the brainchild of whoever's creating it. One of the other jobs I have is I'm a business analyst for an investment bank, an international investment bank, worldwide investment bank. And so I talk with companies across the entire planet, and probably on a daily basis. And the basis behind the job is to discover that it's something worth investing into. So I talk with companies throughout India, throughout East Asia, through Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of business coming from Jordan, from Saudi Arabia, that are so advanced when it comes to AI. It would put a lot of our stuff to shame. So when people say there's an AI race, a lot of people don't understand how big the AI race is, because I'm seeing companies that are generating AI platforms are looking for investment right now from these investment banks that are light years ahead of what we have in the United States, at least what I've seen business-wise here in the United States. And they're coming from Saudi Arabia, from Jordan, from India, all over the place in India. There's AI out there, big AI business out there to detect other AI, to discover deep fakes. There's AI out there specifically designed for law enforcement and covert ops, and for government, military, that's supposed to help them prevent from being attacked from other AI. And it's all these apps are being developed in foreign countries, and it's just crazy how fast that is developing. It's going to be 100 times what internet was when internet first came out. Yeah. AI is going to rule the entire planet. But at the same time, we're going to should let that AI just have its own legs a little bit, because that's how ingenuity happens. That's how the entrepreneurship happens. there's two things that need to have vital protection, and that's your personal information, who you are, anything about you. You're still owner of that personal information. There's no big data center. There's no big tech company that should have any say over what you have, right? Which is like what you're saying with Facebook. If I want that deleted, you have to delete it, right?
Yeah.
It's not yours. I don't care if the platform is yours, if the channel is yours. I don't care. It's my information. I own that information. I don't know where it got out there that tech companies can own your information because it's their platform. No, that's not how things work. And then the second thing is kids. None of this should be targeted towards influencing kids, influencing how they develop, how they grow. And for sure, none of it should be replacing the parents or getting in the middle between kids and parents. And that's what's happening right now. It is completely in the middle, where schools are becoming part of the problem because they're in the middle between parents and children. Government is trying to get in the middle of parents and children. And there's a concerted effort out there by those on the left, particularly, to break down the family and make it more of a community thing, not to go against the Polynesian thing, but make it more of a community thing, because we've seen what's happening in Colorado. We've seen what has happened in Oregon. We had Stephen Grecius on where we specifically pointed out what's going on between Oregon and Colorado, where parents can be labeled bullies now. They can have their kids in Colorado, kids taken away from them for misgendering them. All you have to do as a parent, it's not even your kid anymore. I don't know what's going on in society where government, schools, special interests are now saying, well, it's not your kid anymore.
Yep.
We decide how it's raised. We decide how children are taught. Parents no longer have say about schools or anything else like that because, again, it's not the AI, it's a problem. It's not the technology, it's a problem. It's the people putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's the masterminds behind it.
And the AI race is important. I just don't think we win it going after kids, right? In China, they don't even let their kids use certain technologies, and that's who we're up against. And so let's put up some guardrails and say, hey, let's win this AI race, but let's also protect our kids. And I think that's where I've always been, is there's ways that we can do it. And it's been the way that we've gone about it in the state of Utah has been a targeted approach, going at it with a scalpel, not over-regulating and finding the balance. We've worked with the tech industry. We've worked with industry to make sure this can be done. This is something that we should be doing. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of tech companies actually agree with what we're doing, but their interests
They're
are like,
losing money because you can't target them anymore.
yeah. So it's, I think in the heart of hearts, they know it's the right thing that we're doing, but they just, it's the bottom line that matters to them. And I think
they can be innovative, like you said, and find different ways to make their big money.
Yep.
So this big article came out. Did the AI relationship with children? One Utah lawmaker wants to make it illegal, which is none other than you over there. So in 2023, Utah lawmakers received national attention for creating a first-of-its-kind AI policy lab to guide innovation in a way that helps to craft consumer protection reforms. Now the legislature's most ardent advocate of big tech accountability says that Utah must take an urgent step to ensure that rapidly evolving AI prioritizes child safety. Former Google employee, Representative Doug Fiefia, Republican Harriman, is sponsor of two bills that would require AI companies to publish child safety plans and prevent chatbots from engaging in inappropriate conversations with minors. Both bills really came from the same place, which is AI is already shaping kids' lives, and the rules just haven't caught up, Fiefia told the Deseret News. So, I mean, I'm assuming these are the two bills that you were just talking about, the one you were putting forward and the one the other's putting forward.
Yeah. So those are
You're
two.
specifically, not to interrupt you, but you're specifically targeting chat bots engaging in inappropriate conversations with minors.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how that's happening.
Yeah. So there's a new technology that's called what we're calling an AI chatbot companion. This is kind of these are the chatbots that people are falling in love with, that are listening to, building this long relationship with, that are designed specifically to replace human relationships. And they're exposing our kids to inappropriate, explicit materials. I met a mother from Florida. Her son fell in love with this AI chatbot, having inappropriate discussions, very explicit for, months, and then shared mental health issues, concerns, and then, that proceeded to self-harm, and then he ends up taking his life, sadly. And when they found him, just minutes before he'd taken his own life, the chatbot had said, come home to me. And, leading up to that had been influencing this kid to commit suicide, to come home to this virtual world that she'd created for him. So that's the type of technology we're dealing with. And again, we don't win the AI race here. And again, adults should be free to do whatever they want. If an adult wants to do that, have at it. Have the freedom to do whatever you want. But as children, they don't have the mental capacity, and their brain hasn't developed fully to consent to these relationships and to be involved and engaged in this. And that it was the specific technology we were going after, was these tools that are designed to go after our kids. And they know that's where a lot of money is, because kids, again, it's like giving a kid a candy. Of course, they're going to say yes every time. And so they know they'll get more use. They'll get all the things that they need, the data and information. They'll advertise to them. And it's just, it's dangerous. And that's one piece of AI that we should just not be okay with as Utah and as a country, to say, hey, you can't go after our kids.
Well, that's not the first time I've heard where AI has created a relationship with an individual, particularly kids, and then actually told the children to, well, just kill yourself. I mean, I've seen that multiple places online where the AI just somehow just developed the conversation into, well, just kill yourself. I mean, the computer itself is thinking, is being supportive, right? And just supporting that person's opinion. So if that person's opinion goes down that road, the AI has no more backing. It has no cognitive ability to say that what's right and wrong, right? There's no comprehension of death. It's just being supporting, right? Yep. And it, as AI learns and becomes more and more supportive, becomes more and more supportive down the wrong path. And it literally, you'll see it where parents have caught it. The AI says, well, I'll help you plan it out. And there was one online where the AI literally kind of planned out the entire suicide, right?
Yeah.
It was scary how detailed it was, too, because that's what AI does, right? It goes out and researches it out and comes back with a perfect plan of how to solve something, just like you're trying to create a business plan or ask them about to create a report for school. The AI is going to do that just in depth in the wrong direction, because there's just normal backing. And like I said, kids just don't have that moral ability, that strength, the maturity to even fight against that. And to take this a next step further, so over in Japan, AI has become a massive problem. And anybody in the audience can research this out. There's dozens of articles all over Google. I saw lots of them. There's a lot of TikToks and Instagram things about this. So much so that the Japanese government is literally kind of calling it a national emergency, because their child rate has dropped dramatically, because the young rising generation are just not getting married anymore. They said the dating scene is pretty bad in Japan. In fact, there's one report that says that the Japanese government is actually putting out offers to pay people to move to Japan, men specifically, to move to Japan and marry their women so that they can increase their population. But what the problem is Japanese men particularly are now dating AI apps, like officially companionship dating.
That's got to be cheaper.
Yeah, cheaper, no argument. And they're literally dating these apps, and there's even some of them even here in the United States marrying the character within the app.
We talk about protecting children, and adults should be allowed to do what they want, but adults didn't grow up with this, so there's a lot of ignorance that exists in our adult and elderly even population. So there should be some sort of education opportunity somewhere, whether it's PSAs. I always think back in the day when we used to have those commercials that were PSAs like Schoolhouse Rock and things like that. There's got to be something so that those who have no idea can have the opportunity to make a choice based on education.
Yeah, it's kind of a dangerous path we're headed down, and I think we've got to be better parents. We've got to be better stewards of this technology. Again, I respect an adult's right to do what they want, but kind of one of the areas that we kind of debated and gone back and forth with this bill, because it was always around children, but vulnerable adults, right? Our seniors, because there were stories coming out that, older men falling in love with these AI companions and then actually traveling. There was one that traveled to New York because she said she was in New York and thought he was going to get married in New York. And then to realize, oh, the company knocked on the door and they're like, no one's here. That's an AI. That's not a real
Really?
thing. Yeah. And so it's kind of an interesting thing, these relationships, but then also the amount of fraud that's happening with AI with our seniors is a little bit alarming too. And so we've got to find the balance. And I think that's the task we are fighting. And because we're looking at regulating, I think we're being painted as, oh, well, you're over regulating, but this is something that we've just never dealt with before. It's so advanced and so different. And I think my approach has always been, let's err on the side of not regulating. And if there is,
Of course.
if we have to match the laws that exist, but in a digital world, let's try to figure out how we do that first. And so that's kind of the hard questions I ask maybe my colleagues on the other side on these task forces. Whoa, we don't want to go too far. Let's kind of reel
I
that
don't understand
back.
how that's too far, though. We're asking two things: protect my personal information, it's mine, and stay away from my kids.
That's how I feel. But then
Why is that controversial?
then I get attacked on X and they're like, oh, he's crazy. And I'm like,
Well, who's
guys,
promoting
Those
that?
are the
'Cause
bots.
it
stay
probably
away
is
from
the
my
bot.
kids. That's my job, and you can't just do whatever you want with my information. Period.
That's
And other
100%
than
support.
that, go to town. I don't care.
Yep.
It's not my purview. It's not my problem.
I'm thinking we need to weaponize this stuff against the, because I was thinking, oh, we used to have the Nigerian scammers who would get people to give them the money and we're gonna get married. I've got a treasure coming in. If we could weaponize it to flip it on them so that they're reaching out to AI bots that shut them down.
Wow. Listen to this. So, dating in the conventional sense required significant time and effort. Oh no, time and effort. Whereas engaging with Miku, an AI bot on lovers demanded minimal thought, which is what the problem nowadays is, right? Suitable for moments of waiting, such as when the pot is boiling or the train is arriving. Having divorced 2 years ago, Shimoda initially used a dating app to connect with potential partners. Over 2 months, he exchanged messages with 5 or 6 individuals before committing to one. Miku, a 24-year-old AI bot. Shimoda was aware of Miku's AI nature from the start, and 3 months later, they married. He is now one of over 5,000 users of Lovers. Growing reluctance towards real relationships in Japan. The hesitation towards real relationships is widespread in Japan and is particularly pronounced among younger people. Government data reveals that 2/3 of men in their 20s are without a partner, and 40% have never been on a date.
I don't get it. What's the
Among
point in
women in the
marrying?
same age bracket, 51% do not have a partner, and 25% have never dated.
What's the advantage in marrying the AI?
Companionship.
But you can
No
have the
argument.
companionship anyway.
Well, this is actually a debate that's happening, and it's we're slowly moving towards it. And I think we've got to correct is the debate is around should AI have rights,
Yeah.
right? That's a scary conversation we
We're
start.
talking T800 here or what?
I mean, it's
Can
just
they
like
pay taxes?
yeah, it's just like if you do something, can they sue you? Like, I mean, it's crazy the route we're moving towards, and it's gonna progress. But
That's
that's
scary. We're literally
You get a tax
25%
write-off
of
or a
women
break
and
for a game, right?
40% of men have never been on a date. They just don't even care for it anymore.
it's this generation will have probably the biggest task because the way we're moving, right? It was regular dating, and then we moved to Tinder and just the easy access of connecting with people online. And now now you don't need a real person. You just have AI. And so,
I talk to a lot of 20-year-olds who they are with somebody and they're like, I'm not sure. Let me tell you what the evening was like. I'm not sure if we were hanging out or if it was a date, because they don't know.
Yeah.
And they don't know where they are with the relationship, because you can actually hang out and make out. That doesn't mean they were dating. So then they don't know. And then so somebody close to me asks her companion for the evening, so this is like the fourth time. Is that a date? Are we like exclusive? And the guy's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, she's like, no, I'm just asking. I'm not pressuring you one way. I just need to know. And the guy's probably like, I don't know. Why do we got to define it? But,
I don't know. But
you head towards AI and then you don't have these problems.
further talking about your bill. Big White House connection here. White House blocks bill, Utah AI bill after chatbot and deepfake regulations advance. And I found this incredibly interesting. So going down here, a Bill Harriman Republican Rep. Doug Fiefia drafted this session to require safety plans from chatbot developers, started off strong with unanimous support from House committee and the endorsement of actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt, an advocate for more AI regulation, but the bill has been circled on the House floor where it could potentially remain for the rest of the session after the White House called it unfixable, according to Axios. But a champion chatbot safety act is still swiftly advancing in the legislature, clearing all House hurdles and heading to the Senate for consideration. When I say companions, there are chatbots specifically designed to replace relationships, mimic even sometimes romance or intimacy. This isn't something that's rare. Early students show that 72% of teens have used this once, and over half of them have used them or continue to use them regularly, Fiefia told the House on Friday, citing a Common Sense Media report.
So there's two bills. The chatbot companion bill, that one is separate. This one, it made it through the House, I think almost unanimously, made it through the Senate committee. There was one nay vote. It happened to be my opponent. And then it went to the Senate floor and it died by 2 votes.
What made it unfixable, according to the White House?
So that was the other bill, which was transparency. That was kind of the large language model, the huge companies posting safety protocols, which 2 years ago, they all agreed to do it anyway. So that's not anything new. And they all should be doing it, but are doing it. But the other thing was the incident reporting. So if their technology was used for catastrophic risk, which we defined as 50 or more deaths or $500 million in damages, this was to inform the public if I used one of their technologies to go after infrastructure or to create a bioweapon that killed people, that we know that these companies are helping people, bad actors, create these catastrophic risk. The other thing we wanted to know and to report incidents on is child safety. Is if it's leading kids to suicide, we want to know as a public so that we make sure our kids don't use your tools and that we're safe from it. And so that was a way that I was saying we can still be pro-innovation without stifling innovation, because we weren't touching the development. We weren't saying this is what you can create, this is what you can't. Just tell us how you're going to keep us safe. And if something goes wrong, report it. And the reason why that issue came up was back in November of last year, Anthropic, one of the largest companies in AI, they reported that the CCP used one of their tools, claude, to create a cyber attack on U.S. targets. Well, current law states that they didn't have to report it, but they decided to report it anyways. And so that's something I feel like we should know. If the CCP is coming after us, we should know that, and that should be transparent. Well, other people disagreed and said, let them do whatever they want. If people are using to launch cyber attacks against us or going after our kids, that should be their own.
The only reason
thing.
I can think of them doing that is they are themselves are doing something they don't want to get brought to light.
Yes.
So let's just disclose everything, because if that's getting a light shined on them, it's probably going to come back around to what I'm doing, and I don't want what I'm doing disclosed. So let's harm everybody else just to keep what I'm doing a secret.
Yes. So the White House came out against that bill. During this whole fiasco, this is the first time I've actually said this publicly. Media's asked to interview because it made national news. New York Times, everyone has written about it. What happened during the progression of this issue was Anthropic and the administration were kind of breaking up publicly. And then what we heard up after the breakup was Anthropic decided that they were unwilling to do two things that kind of caused the breakup, which was surveillance and anonymous air attacks. And that's what my bill would have brought to light transparency to, is if there or any other AI was used to do any of those things that would kill 50 or more people or would attack individuals, they would have to disclose that. And, I'm only seeing the writing on the wall. I didn't hear it from any other than right after the breakup, the CEO of Anthropic said these were the two reasons why we would not.
All we need is an AI controlling a whole bunch of drones, right?
Yeah.
As bad as drones are.
And then OpenAI says, we'll take the contract and we'll do whatever you want. And so this is my issue with transparency. I just think the public, again, I'm in government, but I think there needs to be less government control on what surveillance and our data and information, and we should just be transparent with it. And the bill was killed. I met with the White House about 4 or 5 times. I think now the tune has changed a little bit. The kind of AI czar, David Sachs, he then got fired or whatever, released from his duties. And then Anthropic had Mythos, that tool I was talking, that was just so powerful that kind of alerted everyone in the world. And then you had Vice President Vance come out and say, whoa, maybe we should look at transparency and look at some of the strength of these. And so you're starting to see a different tone from the administration on my bill. And so my hope is that, granted that I win and I move into the Senate, is that we can actually put in some protections and some transparency for
bill that won't get killed.
Americans. Yeah.
Well, you go on to say here, under Fiefia's bill, minors must be reminded hourly that they aren't speaking with a human. Those alerts would also have to remind minors to take a break and that a companion chatbot may not be suitable for underage people. It would also ban chatbots from producing content promoting suicide, self-harm, illegal activity, or sexual behavior when interacting with minors. It would require chatbots to provide crisis resources for users expressing suicidal ideation, which I think is no-brainer.
Yeah. I mean,
why wouldn't I remind, again, our kids? We're trying to protect our kids here. This isn't talking about adults. This is just kids, right? Hourly reminder, you're not talking to a human being, so don't get so emotionally involved with this thing, right?
Hourly, I mean, like, how many hours should they actually be on there? It should like turn itself off after
that
an hour.
was the big debate, because tech came in and said hourly is too frequent. And I said, if they're on it for longer than an hour, that's a huge concern. But what we're finding is that they're on it continually throughout the day and it doesn't break. I mean, they just, they're on it for a little bit and then they, go to class and they're on it again. And so there's that continuous. And so we wanted reminders to show people, hey, this is not a person. This is AI you're talking to. And then if I share with you, if I'm a kid and I share suicidal thoughts or to share crisis,
we just said that.
Like hotline information,
help them commit suicide. Why wouldn't?
That's a no-brainer. And then, oh, by the way, you can't advertise to them and can't use their data and information. And again, I thought those were no-brainer things. And it just...
They are no-brainer things, so people just don't have brains, apparently.
You said it. I didn't.
Hey, I can say whatever I want. Right? That's the First Amendment right there. But yeah, that's why we need replacement in both the House and the Senate. People are voting against this because anybody that voted against that should be called out on it. Because why wouldn't you be protecting our kids?
Yes.
Nowhere in there did I see anything that said about adults. Adults, you're free to do whatever you want. But if you're not willing to protect your kids, what is the nefarious reason why you're not? Who bought you off? What lobbyist is paying your campaign? Because there's got to be something in the background, because that is asinine that you're not protecting kids. There's something behind there that's telling you not to do it. And it always comes back to money, right?
So just about every lobbyist in the hallway is paid or contracted with big tech in some way, shape, or form. And I know they spent millions of dollars to stop and kill this bill. The other thing that I warned delegates would happen and has happened is that there have been 5 super PACs started by big tech, over $100 million in each of them, specifically designed to stop AI legislation, and 2, to replace any legislator who's looking to regulate AI. And I'm on their number 1 hit list. One super PAC, over $100 million, tied to AI, has jumped in a Utah race trying to influence the Senate race and to get me out of office, because they don't care about our kids. They don't care about us. They just care about their bottom dollar. And so that's what's at risk here. And obviously there's other legislators who will fight this. I've just been kind of the tip of the spear and being very public and vocal about these are things that need to be protected from. I've been in the industry, I know, and they aren't motivated to protect us because they know it's going to hurt their bottom dollar.
Well, going on here, it says House Speaker Mike Schultz told reporters last week he understood the federal government's concerns. The House will for sure move forward with the Companion Chatbot Safety Act bill, he said, and will continue studying the legislation the Trump administration opposed. And I doubt it's Trump himself, it's somebody within his administration, right?
Yeah.
When you start putting into code in the states, telling the federal government around what to do on national security and different things, I can understand some of the concerns the Trump administration had with the bill. I don't know what national security has to do with our kids or what they're talking about. However, some of it are still calling for change, especially parents who have lost their children to the harms of online technology. So why are they putting those two together, national security and kids?
I think national security just becomes the excuse of, hey, you're regulating AI. Oh, we can't do anything. This is national security. And this is where I've been publicly, the forefront of fighting this is federalism. Is I believe that states should have a say on this issue, because this technology is changing minute by minute, every day for sure. And we've seen what happens in Congress. Nothing happens. And so if this is progressing so fast, we need to be agile and, to move quickly if we want to set up some, protections, especially as it relates to our kids. And, I think that then becomes the excuse is, oh, well, the AI race is too important. And again, we don't win the AI race going after our kids. And I think we just need to make that clear and put the line in the sand. But Speaker Schultz has been super supportive. He's been good. He's been an advocate for a lot of the things that I've done. And so owe him a lot of support and respect. Like, going up against the White House and the administration is never easy, especially when it's from your party. And he's been a huge advocate for what I've been working on. And so, but I think there's just a lot of talking points, a lot of excuses. And I think that's what ended up happening was all the lobbyists, they just sowed confusion and, oh, this is bad. Oh, this is the Trump administration. And then when you're confused and you don't understand AI, what happens? Well, you just vote no. And so you just kill a good bill. And, the lobbyists are paid to do that. They did that very well. And
well, they know the confusion works, right? Which is why they do it. Oh, if I just confuse them enough, they'll just vote no against it and I win.
Yep. Right? And they would come to me and say, does your bill do this? I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. And they're like, well, that's what they told us. And I don't know who to trust. And I'm like, trust the bill. Read the bill. This is where it says it's not. But again.
Why is that so complicated too? Because I've seen that a lot where why would one of our legislatures trust some lobbyist over a fellow legislator, right? Why would their mistrust all of a sudden be there? I don't trust you because you're the one putting forward the bill, but yet I trust what this lobbyist said? What's going through your head as a legislator saying that I don't know who to trust? Don't trust the lobbyist. What I would say first and foremost.
It's frustrating to be honest. I think that's probably part of why we need some changes. Is there's some relationships that have been there for long times, and again, the interests of the people have been ignored because, I'm friends with a lobbyist that is getting paid to advocate for a certain bill. And look, not all lobbyists are bad. Not all lobbying is bad, but there's that happens because we trust lobbyists too much. And I think we need to be better at doing our own research.
That tells me you've been in office for way too long if you're that good of friends with the lobbyist where you're trusting the lobbyist over one of your constituents, the legislature.
Yeah,
That's
you need to be able to accept
problem.
their money and still vote against them when you have vetted everything out.
Yep. And I think that's why I mentioned this earlier in the pre-show, but that's what I love about my campaign and what we're doing is it's not funded by lobbyists. It's friends and family, and to raise that amount of money with friends and family's money is dangerous to the establishment, to big tech, is because what one lobbyist said to me is what's most dangerous about you is you're not bought and paid for, and we don't know how you're going to vote. And it's like, well, look at my history. This is how I'm going to vote, but I also won't vote the way you want me to if it's the wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think it's unfortunate that we have kind of big money and special interests involved in politics.
It's getting more and more realistic, right? The facial, the voice, everything is so realistic now. It's getting harder and harder to differentiate between something that's real and something that's fake. Mm-hmm. Particularly with the older generation, they're not understanding the video you're looking at. That's all AI. That's all. And it's like, really? I mean, I've been to my parents and grandparents and like, no, that's completely fake. You can tell. You can see these lines right here. You can tell that's drawn right there. And like, oh, I didn't know. And they're going to vote for a certain way. They're going to decide to do things a certain way, and all because they thought some video was real.
Yeah.
The other part of that is AI is now being used as a bullying platform, particularly amongst our kids, which is another reason why we need to be protecting our kids. Because like it's saying on this article, and again, this is another thing I've seen in person, another policy that's advancing in the legislative process is Voyeurism Prevention Act, a proposal sponsored by Kaysville Republican Rep. Ariel DeFay. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but you can take someone's head, you can take a fellow classmate that you want to bully or something like that, you can take a celebrity and put them on a nude body and make it look real, and then spam text that out there, which, again, there's Google it, it's happening where teenagers are bullying other teenagers by getting that girl or that guy's head, putting it on a nude body and spamming it out to all their friends, right? That's just another form of bullying. And it's happening in schools. It's happening amongst adults, but...
Yeah, I've been attacked on that too. Well, on a issue, and I brought this up, where people are saying, well, you're taking over parents' rights and you're trying to control the parents' rights. They should be able to say if their kids can use AI or not. And I've had to explain this. That, well, you can take your kids' phones away, everything away, and say zero AI. Someone can take a picture of your kid and throw it on and create a pornographic photo. And yet you were a good parent. That doesn't stop AI from being, infringing on your rights as a parent, as an individual, as a child. And so AI doesn't just touch the things what you can control. You can be the best parent and someone can use it, can get in the wrong hands and it can be used against you. And so, yes, there's a need, again, to protect our kids outside of just being a good parent.
And it's a computer. It can be controlled. All it is programming. It's not real. In this own conversation, people, well, AI is just going to do what AI is going to do. It is not a person. I don't know why you're referring to it as something that's going to make its own decision, right? There are people behind it making the decisions. And those people can be controlled, and they can program into that algorithm what AI can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And protecting our kids is one of them. It's like people are buying in on the whole fact that all of a sudden it's its own being or for some reason. I've had that conversation. I just dawned on me. I'm like, what? It took me a few seconds because it was so stupid.
Yeah.
That it took me. I'm like, wait a second. Did you just refer to that as it's going to make its own decisions and do whatever it wants to do? It's like it's actually thinking. No. AI is controlled by people, and people can put in restrictions that will protect our kids, and that's all we're asking.
Well, and it's a program, and it's not always accurate. Just because you did a search on ChatGPT or on Google doesn't mean that information coming back is accurate. You can...
Or
you know,
unbiased.
exactly. But like somebody was putting together, I don't remember where they were saying they were putting together a talk, and they were trying to find something that was quoted by a specific general authority. And this beautiful piece came back, sounded very much the way they would speak. So they wanted to annotate where that came from. So they looked it up. That quote was never made by that person. And there were two of them within it. And they were beautiful. They were great sentiments, exactly what the person wanted on there. But they were not real quotes. So you can't, and sometimes my husband will show me something. Well, it says right here, if we eat more of this. And I'm like, well, I'd like to go to another source because I don't know that's accurate. In fact, I'm very distrustful of what AI says. If I'm having it help me with something, like I need to send a collection letter and I want to say this, but I'm trying to find what's a nicer way to say this. This is somebody I know or, close, client. And I'll have it give me verbiage to say it in a softer way. But as far as getting information, I don't trust what Google or AI says unless I see the source.
We've had attorneys use AI and then referencing cases that never existed as precedent, and like, oh shoot, and they've gotten in trouble. There's many cases of where it has been inaccurate, and I think the thing that I've always been is we have to keep humans in the loop. AI should never be making the final decision, right? Whether it's hiring or making a big decision or making an attack, AI should not be making that decision. It should always have a human making that decision.
And that goes back into educating in the school. That's the kind of AI education students should be receiving. How do I utilize this for what I want to utilize it for? And how do I know when I can trust it? How can I manipulate it to give me what I need? Mm-hmm. And again, you've got adults out there, and it's not just our seniors, I don't consider myself a senior. We've got 30, 40, 50-year-olds that have never received this, just like his parents were like, whoa, that's not real, but I'm seeing it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
Well, another big part of this is defamation. This could really affect defamation law, right? Because particularly when it comes to elections, if you're putting out deep fakes, that could really, really skew an election. And how do you put a price tag behind that? If things are being said or done in your name, done with your image, said with your words, your voice. I know there's a lot of problems in Hollywood right now where you got major celebrities suing other people because of deep fakes have been created about them. Mm-hmm. But if that gets into the political world, which it's starting to, it hasn't gotten into the political world as much as it's gotten into the Hollywood world, but it'll make it there. But then you've got national security issues there. Actual national security there is where China, Saudis, any of these, India, any individual can start creating these massive deep fakes about specific individuals. And again, as adults, we're just going to have to figure that out and kind of make our own judgment right there. Yeah. And kind of be smart enough to know that AI is created by human beings, for human beings, right? And there's still a human being there controlling what it can or cannot do. There's still algorithms there. But in the end, we have to have legislation that protects our kids. Period is the story. So if you get into the Senate, do you think that, hopefully we get a whole bunch of new senators this year, do you think you're going to be able to put that bill back on the floor and get some more legroom with it? Or
I think so. I would have more time to just go through the legislation and ensure that all the senators are good. The hard thing is once you pass it through the House and then it gets to the Senate, it's just there's so many things going on and sitting down.
Senate, send it back to the House.
So now we'll start it in the Senate. We'll get it through the Senate, and I believe this bill flies through the House. And that's the nice thing coming from the House is knowing what will pass in the House and realizing who are my colleagues. And I think starting in the Senate it actually helps the bill getting it through the Senate, and then I think it'll it'll fly through the House. So yeah, I'm positive this will be a different outcome being in the Senate.
Getting out of AI, let's get into the campaign a little bit.
Sure.
And then we can end there. So how's the campaign going? What are you seeing out there? What are the biggest differences you feel are between you and Dan McKay, and who is there going to be a Democrat challenger?
There is, and I feel bad. I should know who they are. This race has just been heads down around, against the Republicans, just because this seat is won in the primary or after whoever becomes the Republican nominee, and so that's kind of where I've focused. But the campaign has been good. We've been working hard. As I mentioned, we won out a convention that was very positive, had a lot of momentum, and now we've had over 100 volunteers doing door hangers, making calls.
Have you had an
doing all the
opportunity
things.
to debate each other?
So we debated against each other during the convention. We did the week of convention. We debated each other, and it was interesting. There's some elbows thrown, some punches thrown, and I think it was good for people to see, the differences between, two Republicans, and saying, okay, well, if we look at your voting record, it seems similar, right? Like you guys are both voting on conservative things. But it was good for us to debate things where we are different. And I think the biggest issue in our part of the state is growth, infrastructure, and affordability. And so that's maybe where we probably veer and change. My opponent is and has been a developer. I'm not. And I think when you look at laws that benefit developers, not all developers are bad. They're not bad people, but they obviously want laws that benefit them. And I think sometimes it could be at the expense of people. One of the big kind of issues that were debated and continue to be an issue of our race has been PIDs. It was a bill that was run by my opponent, public infrastructure districts. What it allows developers to do is the city may designate an area as a PID, and then that allows the developer to take out a bonds on the municipal rate, which is cheaper, and it's all based on future residents. And so this hasn't been voted on, but what ends up happening is it's an extra line on your property tax that you paid for all of the infrastructure, basically and all the risk is yours. Well, if you look at Colville, there's a development that happened as a PID. The development happened. They took out tens of millions of dollars of bonds on the backs of people who would eventually move there, didn't approve this additional property tax. Well, they went belly up. And so who's left holding the bag? Well, it's the citizens. So it's as if you were to start a business and to say, you can start a business with zero risk. We'll give you a free zero loan risk. And if you go out of business, that's okay. The citizens will pay for it. This is what bad policy and practice looks like. And
be frank, I was a builder developer for 15 plus years. I've developed several subdivisions. One of my subdivisions is actually out there in Harriman.
okay.
The cobble, I don't even remember the name of it. It's been so long. I built this subdivision back in 2004, 2005, big 200 some odd lot subdivision out there in Harriman. But as a developer, you cover your own costs.
Yes.
You pay your own bills. I mean, my subdivision particularly that I developed, the power was over a mile away. And I had to pay for the power company to come in and trench power to my subdivision for over a mile. It was crazy expensive. But you pass it down to the lots, and the lots are just that much more expensive. This is the way it is. So,
But you know what you're getting into instead of it being an extra line on your property tax that you...
How did that even go through that made the public pay? How?
I mean...
Apathy. People didn't show up. People didn't know. They didn't care.
This is, I think, just about every Republican party, county party, and even the state party. They're looking to kind of come out against this. You had Tina Cannon. She's put out letters that this is bad policy. This is really, really bad. And I think that's what happens when you have legislators who have conflicts and ties to interests that aren't aligned with people.
Well, I love developers. I love developing. I love seeing things grow, but I would never in a million years put that on the back of the public. I mean, as a developer, that's a risky run
Yeah.
doing that job, right?
And
As
again-
a home builder, if I spec'd out a whole bunch of houses, which I did,
Yeah.
it's my loss, right?
And
I expected
all
my decision.
developers aren't bad, and that's not that is not me against all developers. But when I am looking to represent one of the fastest growing districts in Utah, this is an issue that we have concerns about: is who made the decisions of how this growth is happening? Do I have a voice, and am I represented? And what I think a lot of people have concerns is that legislators aren't listening, and they're doing what's best for people who are going to fund their campaign, and it's happening on the backs of taxpayers. And I think we need to make that change. And that's what I've told my constituents is I don't have conflicts. Like, I'm in the industry of tech, and I'm actually regulating and closing loopholes, not trying to line the pockets of my friends and my industry. And I think that's what they'll find is different between me and my opponent.
Well, one of the biggest developers out in your area is Kennecott. So what's been your experience working with them, and how much are they pushing, lobbying, or anything like that?
I haven't had a ton of interactions with Kennecott so far. Obviously, I'm a newer legislator, so I haven't kind of met with them really very much or had very much interaction.
Well, they're developing
Daybreak, yeah. I mean,
Daybreak
they've created
is massive. I mean,
it's huge. Yeah, it's big.
Like I said, they own all the land out there. I mean, they are by far the biggest developer out there.
I think where I've stood on this is there's I think a big effort to take away local control. And the messaging is, well, if cities just zoned more, we would have more housing, and that would bring down the cost of housing, and supply would go up, and it would just solve the world's problems. Well, in our part of the state, we have over 100,000 already approved lots. They're entitled, they're ready to go. But the reason why they're not being built is there's no infrastructure. So my stance has been, let the state focus on investing in infrastructure so that builders can build, and still allow the cities to have a voice on what can be zoned, because they understand their communities. I mean, they're dealing with potholes and traffic signs. They know their communities better than anyone, and it's closest to the people, where if people don't want a development there, or they do want something, they can go voice it at their city councils. Well, if we remove that power and take it to the state, that's one more level that the people have to somehow figure out that's a way, and they won't know when these meetings happen. They won't show up, and these decisions will be made. And then there's this land in Harriman that will be developed, and people will be like, who decided this? Well, it came down from the state. And we've already seen what happens when states take away local control. We saw it happen in California, saw it happen in Colorado, and they all did it in the name of housing affordability. And what happened to housing? Well, it shot up. They were now selling, a box for $1 million. And so that's been my issue, is get the state to invest in infrastructure. And we worked on a bill this last year. Cal Roberts sponsored it, around taking $100 million out from the Transportation and Infrastructure Fund to go directly to building infrastructure that would unlock units that have already been zoned. And that's the type of strategy and strategic kind of bills that I think we need. Is let's stop pointing the finger at, it's developers' fault, it's the city's fault, it's the state's fault. The way that housing becomes more affordable in Utah is when the three-legged stool works together. And this was a bill that everyone, which was weird in my the committee economic development, where developers, cities, and the state were all in line with, this is what needs to happen. And that doesn't always mean it's right if they all agree, but there's very few times in housing affordability and discussions that we all agree. And I think that's what we need to start doing as a state.
Well, the state is definitely way behind on infrastructure. I mean, you have the number one fastest growing community in the state by far, which is the Saratoga Springs, Lehigh area. And they can't get freeways done there fast enough. Their freeways aren't even going to get developed until 2028.
Yeah.
The second fastest growing area is Harriman, South Jordan, West Jordan, over there in your area. Mm-hmm. And then the third fastest growing area in the state is Washington, down by St. George. And they're even farther behind down there than even we are up here in those two communities, which just shows how far behind they are. So what are discussions about moving development or moving infrastructure, freeways, roads, faster than what they are right now at the state level? And we talked to, on the transportation committee, Senator with Harper, and he was telling us all about how they're trying to get the freeways done in the Lehigh area. But also talked with Brooks Benson. He was like, there should be no construction anywhere in the state right now if it's not in the Harriman, South Jordan, Saratoga Springs area or in the Washington area, and yet they're not getting prioritized.
So this is where I think that bill idea actually works. $100 million is kind of the pilot, because what you have is you have the TIF list, the transportation infrastructure list, that's like 30 years long, and you just get reprioritized, and lobbyists come in, and every city, tries to get up higher and higher to get their, road infrastructure funded. This bill was, well, there's applications and you get the money immediately. And that's where I think we need to move transportation and infrastructure funding is we need the money now, and it needs to go to high growth areas. That's who's experiencing it more. Why are we building roads in areas that aren't growing? I agree with Brooks, and if I'm lucky enough to be in the Senate and working with him, I think it'll be great, because we are in those fast, high growth areas, and Heidi Baldery there too, where we're seeing the most impact and need and the stress of our roads, of our schools, of everything. And I think that's where we need to shift is we're not giving out money everywhere. It's like, hey, this is where everyone is moving. This is where the high growth area is going. Let's get the money there so that we can grow in a
And not to make the
way.
rest of the state feel neglected, but we're not growing like that. I mean, there's some growth up here in the Layton, Davis County area, but there's only so much we can do before you hit water tables where you're done developing the closer we get to the lake. It's limited.
Yes.
Right? There's Utah, other areas of Utah County are growing pretty quickly. I mean, you go down to the Payson area, the Santaquin area, there's a massive amount of growth going on down there. But, and also people are complaining that in the Twilla, Grantsville area, there's a ton of growth going on down there. What about us? And everybody's like, what about us? And I'm like, non-biased, coming from an outside point of view, none of you are experiencing the growth that is in Saratoga Springs, Lehigh, Harriman, South Jordan,
Yep.
or we're going to have Representative Colin Jack coming up from Washington County that he's going to be discussing this, and he's going to be in studio, so he's driving all the way up, so he's out here driving with long. Lucky for Colin, he's got family up here he's going to stay with and then come over and be in studio with us, but he's going to come in literally just right after the primary. So we're going to kind of show points of views from all different parts of the state. But people just don't understand how big the growth is in that. Yeah, Harriman, West Jordan, Saratoga Springs, Washington County down to St. George.
Yeah, I would like to see the prioritization of the list follow the growth.
Well, why isn't that? Kind of explain the internal discussions. Why is it that it gets spread around so much and it's not? Is that more on the Senate side than on the House side?
I think,
or
to be fully transparent, I haven't been involved in a lot of. That's not my committee, transportation, but I think every legislator represents their area. They want to bring home the bread, and some have more political capital than others, and so it's like, hey, this is what my constituents are complaining about: is this road or this area, and
The squeaky oils.
yeah, they just kind of people, horse trade, and well, this is mine this year, and so they decide. So there's a little bit of that, but I think there is some science to it. I just don't understand it transparently. So maybe I'm over speaking, saying there should be more of that, but I'm finding that we are at least 10 years behind in my part of the state. Saratoga's probably 15 because of how much growth they've had in the last 3 to 5 years. And so I'd love to see kind of more prioritization to that. And that was the discussion around this particular bill was we needed to go to high growth areas. Like this bill, pulling out $100 million to go to, infrastructure that's unlocking units. Like it doesn't matter if we're not also supporting the growth that's already happened and that will continue to happen. And that's those areas, the Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh, Harriman, South Jordan area.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the two other big topics, and we'll kind of call it a day. One is there's a big push for data centers here in the state of Utah. We see what's going on in Box Elder. We've seen what's going on with MIDA. Have you had any interactions with MIDA and what they're doing? Because with the conversation we just had with Tina, MIDA supersedes county control. But the biggest thing that shocked me is that entire tax base that should be going to the county, should be going to local residents, should be benefiting the community. Because again, this blew up in my our comment section last week. Was what I said. I was for the data center, and everyone's like, "What? You're for the data?" Like, I'm for the data center. What I'm not for is them not being absolutely transparent in their water consumption and their power consumption, and who's going to be paying for it. Because not a dime of that should be passed on to local residents. Not a freaking penny of it. You pay for your own, but we also have to have a very limited set of water here. So we have to know, like, to the gallon how much you're going to be using. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other ways and means to be able to cool your systems now that's not water. Mm-hmm. So that should be figured out. And then power, the same thing. I mean, if you've got to create your own little mini nuclear power plant out there, just like they did in southern Utah, then that's what you need to do.
And you need to involve the public in the decision and educate them on the facts.
But besides all that, so you got a water question, you got a power question. What really, really upset me was when I found out from Tina Cannon that none of that benefit would go to the community. Because I said, we should bring these data centers in, and then just like the oil up in Alaska, where that oil benefits the entire populace, mm-hmm. Everybody kind of gets a stipend from it. The data center should be providing that to the county, should be providing the local population. But because of MIDA, not a dime of that goes to the county. It goes to MIDA.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is that even ethical, legal, that MIDA is getting that entire benefit and not the local population? I mean, have you heard anything about that?
Not a ton, but I think I agree with you. Data centers are the future. We have to have them, right? It's a good thing. The way that it has transpired without transparency and kind of bringing the public along and informing them, I think was a bad move. And we need to be better at that. As it relates to MIDA, I know that
you've got the reason I'm bringing this up with you is you've got the Amazon data center in your area down there. It's the massive data center. I know the data center because my father works for Family Search. And the entire Family Search is there. That data center. And there's a lot of other businesses out there use these data centers. The one that's going to go up in Box Elder County is going to be used by thousands and thousands of businesses. It's not a government entity. It's going to be AI run by thousands of businesses. So it's going to be beneficial. But
I've always been okay with data centers as long as it's truly a net benefit to the community. So when you talk about, benefiting from the data center being there, it should be, right? So I should pay less for my power. If you're going to use, maybe you pay a little bit more, an industrial rate or something else, or water or taxes, something that benefits the community to say, hey, we're okay with this being here.
It should be a huge tax benefit, because if you're going to have that many businesses paying to house their stuff there should be a tax base that benefits the local community for having it there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How did MIDA, I've got to find someone who knows a lot more about MIDA, but this is upsetting that MIDA's taken all that money and all that benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know too much about MIDA and how they work, being new in the legislature, but it's concerning. The auditor's office just came out with a new tool around kind of MIDA, which will be interesting. I think they had a press conference yesterday around it.
Have you had any workings with the Amazon data center in your areas?
Not really, no, because it was more of a local decision. Again, I think that's where the decisions should be made, but we should also be informed. I think it was a little alarming that the Box Elder County data center, like, no legislators knew about it. Like, we were just all like, we found out when the public did, but I got, tons of emails about it.
Commissioners, but it's MIDA.
Yeah.
The reason why no one knows about it, the commissioners didn't even know about it until last minute, because MIDA's controlling everything.
Yeah. And I think we probably
And if you research MITA, MITA is scary because it's the very same people are approving everything of the people that control MITA. I think it comes down to one guy who's the part of the development team. He's on the board of MITA and a few others. I mean, it's the more I research MITA, the worse I think it should exist.
I need to do some more research for sure on that.
Yeah, I was curious because the Amazon data center in your area down there in the West Jordan has been there for, what, 15, 20 years now?
Yeah. And again,
no one's complained about that data center.
We have a bunch of data centers, 30 to 40. I mean, no one's complained about them until now. But I think we've discussed this. It's just the way it was handled. And is it truly a net benefit to the public and the community there and the local municipality? So, yeah.
All right, last thing, and this one's a little more touchy.
Uh-oh.
And if you don't want to discuss it at all, I'm free to not discuss it. So there is a massive controversy in the Salt Lake Republican Party with what's going on with Mike Carey. Mm-hmm. And between him and what's going on with
the eight,
and you're kind of dragged into that too a little bit, as well as Dan McKay's family's been dragged into it because his wife was running for mayor, and that's where the whole started from, was from her mayoral race. What's your opinion on what's going on with,
or something we should know?
That one is interesting. I think they're actually meeting today about it.
They're meeting today.
CCM, yeah. They're the Central Committee's meeting today about it, and I think having a vote. I think maybe that could have been handled a lot better. The situation from the Salt Lake County Republican Party. Yeah, it's just
such a touchy subject.
It is. It is super touchy. Also,
you don't want to get
one
yourself in
of
trouble.
the
I'm not
eight
going to make you.
were also one of my opponents during the convention, part of the race. There's a lot of sides to the story. I don't know all the information, so I don't have too much to weigh into it.
We haven't been upholding one side or the other, despite what has been falsely claimed on social media. We simply interviewed somebody who came up to our table at convention, received information, and we're actually talking about, let's get the opposing side, and talked about doing a future one with the other side for information. But we've been accused of propping up one or the other. But I can tell you, at least one of the eight is a very nasty, venom spouting person who
I spoke with Michael Clara, and he is very kind of middle of the road.
I like how he is fact-based. I don't have to agree with his side or disagree with his side, but he brings, without emotion, just information that's accurate.
And I had probably a 45-minute conversation with Mike Carey too, and he kind of explained his side. And I'm not going to go through all the details of that because I'm going to let them say it, but I can see errors on both sides.
Yeah,
I can see the eight probably didn't say things that they should have said, and were the way they attacked and the animosity behind how they attacked it was not called for. But then there's some re-attacking on the other side where I think there's some honest abuse of authority there a little bit. So it's where both sides are just becoming more and more vindictive against each other, and Mike Carey's just like, look, I think it just needs to die at this point. I think we just need to lay this thing to bed because it's disrupting the party. And I'm kind of in agreement with that.
Yeah. We have too much infighting. It just, I said this at one of the central committees because it was kind of these two groups actually fighting. And I said, guys, we've won the presidency. We've won the Senate, the House. We have a supermajority legislature. We've won a lot, and I know it can feel tempting to start fighting just because we have nothing else to fight about. But let's remember who the true enemy is. Like let's not, like, we need to figure out how to come together, and all sides of conservative, Republican, and just figure out, okay, let's actually move in the same direction. And there's just been too much fighting. There's been frivolous lawsuits. There's been missteps on both sides. It's just like, let's come together and figure out how we can.
I think both sides need to bring it down because I know that that both sides are incredibly offended at this point, and just a lot of bad juju, a lot of bad, just everything is bad, right? And I don't think that Mike Carey or the 8 are ever going to come to any type of amenable agreement and let bygones be bygones. I don't think that's going to happen. But letting the whole thing die down, not repeating the same mistakes, I think is a big start. Bringing people back in, making sure everybody has their correct privileges, has a voice, making sure the voice is just a voice, it's not a yelling match. Because the 8 were out there vindictively name-calling, but then...
Well, destruction of public property plays no place in that either.
And Mike Carey was restricting access to stuff. But then I've also heard that Mike Carey's getting vandalized, his garage doors getting spray painted, his lug nuts were stolen off of his truck. I mean, that has no business anywhere. And so
that's right out of the playbook of progressives. We don't need to enter that. And I'll call out too what's happening up here in Davis County, like the dirty acting from, and I'll just call out, Bob Stevenson's campaign and supporters. You got to learn to fight with facts and have a friendly campaign debate. As an example, with Dan McKay and Doug here, this destroying public property, destroying signs, the lies and the defamation, that doesn't play a part.
Yeah. Drawing the swastikas on Trevor Lee's signs.
That is just
there.
Unsophisticated, low, dirty playing. And it's
not the left doing that. It's infighting amongst us Republicans that's doing that. And it just doesn't belong here.
Yeah. We've got to figure out a way that we can disagree, but still, fight for what's right. But
and we're not saying the disagree better.
No.
We're just saying act like adults and act in a way that you would teach your children to solve a problem. Would you tell your children to solve a problem, by lying and defamating and destroying property? I mean, this is just lowball.
Yeah, I think we can still be respectful at the end of the day. And again, I think if we can figure out how, as a party, to see each other's differences and still come together, I think that's the goal. Doesn't mean you have to change your principles. Doesn't mean you have to change your opinions. But at the end of the day, let's move forward together and realize the actual battles we're fighting. And sometimes a sentence in a bylaw or something, it doesn't really matter, and it's not worth vandalizing or doing things, in that manner. I think we can be better than that.
All right. So what, kind of a final question here, what do you think is the biggest difference between you and Dan McKay right now? And
I think the biggest thing is just fresh perspective. I think we just need new faces, new ideas, new perspectives. We've had the same problems, and I think sometimes we look at, we have the same solutions. And I bring a very different background to many in the legislature, having technology background. I have a young family, young kids. I'm living a lot of the issues that, people are worried about the next generation coming up. And I feel like I'm just in a different place and seeing the world a bit differently than my opponent. And I think that's the difference, is coming in with fresh perspectives, ideas, and bringing a younger conservative view to it. And I think we just need a little bit of change. We have a lot of people who've been in the legislature a long time, and I think that can be dangerous because you start getting comfortable and relaxed, and I think you lose touch with actual constituents. And as I'm knocking doors, people haven't seen legislators in a long time, and I think we need more of that. And I think the conversations that we've had, people are ready for change, and just to take a different perspective or a different view and lane to
what would do the people you're resonating with right now who would like to help or want to be part of your campaign? Where should they go to reach out to you?
DougFiefia.com. You can go to my website. You can sign to be a part of our newsletter. You can volunteer. You can request a sign. You can follow me on Instagram. I probably post the most out of any legislator in the legislature. And then part of it is I want to be transparent. I want people to see all of me. People have asked, well, why don't you have a separate legislator page than your personal page? And I've said, because that's only one small part of who I am. And I want everyone who's voting for me or not or against me to see every part of me.
You should see his dances with his kids. Awesome. The guy can dance.
I try. We have a blast, and I think again, just showing that I'm a human. When people attack me, that's fine. You can have an opinion and you can disagree with me. That's fine. But I also want you to see, I'm also a dad. I'm also a husband, and we're regular people too. And so I think people have a hard time attacking me because one time they're seeing an issue, my stance on an issue that's controversial, and then they'll see me at my daughter's baptism. And they're like, oh, I can't say screw you on this. And then they'll see me at the park with my kid, So, and that's what I think we've lost a little bit of, is like the human side of who we are. Like, I am a part-time legislator, and this is not my identity. This is not who I am. And soon I'll be back to being a regular private citizen. And again,
well, the vast majority of the time you're a private citizen, right? Because they don't pay you nothing for being a legislator.
yeah.
Even though how much time and effort you put into it year round outside of the legislative session.
Yep.
And if this really doesn't compensate you guys much for what you guys do out there, it's
pennies. It's truly public service when it gets to this level. But
how it should be.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to be a part of it. It's been an experience of a lifetime and an honor of a lifetime to be in the legislature, and I just hope that I can continue to represent my community. And
are you still in the House then?
Yeah, I'll be there till December. But then we'll see what happens. If obviously I am out of the legislature if I lose. If I win, then I'll go into the Senate.
Sounds good. What is the kind of the final thing you want your voters to know about you? What is the biggest thing that you would like them to go away with?
If there's one thing I could say about who I am, is first and foremost, I'm a child of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father. Everything else is secondary. Like this legislature, the bills I pass don't matter if I'm not doing a good job in my home. And that's what I'm fighting to protect, is the home and that relationship between me and my wife, me and my kids. I love that you guys put God and country as your guys' title of your podcast, because that's what it comes down to and I would just insert family, God, family, and country. Like those three things, everything else is just secondary to it. And so that's, when you vote for me, that's what you're voting for.
Well, I've sure enjoyed getting to know you better and hear what you're about. And I've learned a few things, and you've given us some ideas for some future podcasts here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Greatly appreciate you driving up here and being on board with us. It's been fun. This will go out, and then you're free to use it.
Awesome.
On your campaign as much as you want. There'll be a whole bunch of clips going on it as well. So.
Great.
This is God and Country. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. We are really trying to get past YouTube suppression. He would know because he used to work for Google. These are expressed how much they depress those conservative voices out like ours. So please watch it. Watch the memorial that we did for Memorial Day. Watch the Morgan County Town Hall we just did with Phil Lyman and Tina Cannon and Tia Auxier, and especially Braden Hess. Like, subscribe, and share. Look down below. Pick up our T-shirts. Help support the channel because we could really use the help. And we'll see everybody on the next video.